The following program is a presentation of DC Communications, LLC. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Kroot.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, an incredibly busy, tremendously manic Monday.
Manic? Don't sing. Hey, Crudy.
How you doing, man?
I'm awesome. What a day. What a news cycle, and what a show we got planned for our folks today.
Outstanding show, that is for surezies. Lots of breaking news, and we're going to share it with you. But let's set up this fine show. Dom, we got great guests. You're welcome. Christine Neumann-Ortiz, I'll give you some credit on this booking. Our friend, Executive Director, Voces de la Frontera, ICE in the state of Wisconsin, out there detaining people, and in the case of several people, or at least a handful, detained in Madison against the policy of the city that they came to without any prior notice to law enforcement. Also, Dom, in-person early voting has begun right here in Milwaukee. We're going to talk with Dana Schultz, Executive Director, Wisconsin Voices, in the 4 o'clock hour. We're encouraging you, go out and vote early. Also, a fine former U.S. attorney, our friend, the resource we need to help explain if Rosenstein gets canned, what happens to MuellerTime?
What?
We'll have to leave some meat on the bone for our pal James Santelle at 4:30. And in the 5 o'clock, in the happy hour today, not happy to announce last week, the final printing of the Wisconsin Gazette happened last Thursday. And we're going to have Weisberg. He is the publisher, editor-in-chief. He's going to join us here on Brady in the happy hour. We're going to talk media.
We'll make it as happy as we can.
We will. He also wrote a fine op-ed this week, Don, perhaps his last at the Gazette, at least in the short time. I guess they'll print online until the election. It was a very anti-Brad Schimmel piece.
Schimmel sucks.
Schimmel does suck. Louis Weisberg in the happy hour. But, Dom, the craziness, perhaps the story of the morning, Rod Rosenstein, the threatened resignation / firing.
I'm so confused.
Show up at the White House this morning, and I would suspect, Dom, this might be a red herring. And how could that possibly be a red herring? Apparently, over the course of the weekend, Donald Trump decided better to be crazy and fire Rosenstein than leave the pressure on Kavanaugh. Now, multiple accusers of his Supreme Court nominee. They seem very disconnected somehow. But in crazy Trump world, there's some logic here.
Lay it on me, brother. How do you see it?
Gabriel Sherman, specifically, our source here at the Vanity Fair. The strategy was to try and do something really big. Trump wanted to nuke Rosenstein to save Kavanaugh's bacon, but Trump allies are privately imploring him to cut Kavanaugh loose to save Republicans' electoral chances in the midterms. I read from the Vanity Fair. At the beginning of one of the most consequential weeks of Donald Trump's presidency, an enormous smoke bomb was detonated in the news cycle when Axios, deeply wired into Trump's West Wing, reported that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein had resigned. Quickly, a head-spinning array of conflicting accounts were put forth. Had he been fired? Was he heading to the White House to be fired? Or was he going to a regularly scheduled meeting? Finally, Sarah Huckabee Colonel Sanders brought a message of clarity by tweeting that whatever was going to happen to Rosenstein would happen on Thursday when the president returned from New York. He's at the UN today, apparently, Dom. And also, let's not forget, Kavanaugh's got his little Capitol Hill Senate Judicial Committee
on Thursday
hearing. Yes, on Thursday. For all the morning madness, there may have been an underlying logic over the weekend as Brett Kavanaugh's prospects appeared increasingly imperiled. Trump faced two tactical options, both of them fraught. One was to cut Kavanaugh loose, but he was also looking for ways to dramatically shift the news cycle away from his embattled Supreme Court nominee. According to a source briefed on Trump's thinking, there's some logic here, Dom. Trump decided that firing Rosenstein would knock Kavanaugh out of the news, potentially saving his nomination and the Republican chances for keeping the Senate. The strategy was to try and do something really big, the source said. The leak about Rosenstein's resignation could have been the result, and it certainly had the desired effect of dragging Kavanaugh out of the news, at least for a few hours. Rosenstein still has a job, at least until Thursday, leaving open multiple possibilities regarding the underlying reality. Regardless, Trump has wanted to fire Rosenstein from the minute he read the New York Times article that reported Rosenstein had discussed secretly taping Trump and rallying cabinet secretaries to invoke 25th Amendment to remove him from office. Rosenstein has denied the account. Some outside advisors, including Sean Hannity.
Is Sean Hannity an outside advisor?
Well, he's a Fox News advisor, very close to the press, I understand. Some outside advisors, including Sean Hannity, have cautioned that the Times story was a trap.
It's a trap.
To get Trump to fire Rosenstein and trigger a Saturday night massacre like the crisis that, however temporarily successful, would leave Democrats holding almost all the cards.
The confusion surrounding Rosenstein's tenure may not give Kavanaugh a reprieve. In public, Trump continues to voice support for his embattled Supreme Court nominee, telling reporters at the United Nations earlier this morning that he stands with Kavanaugh all the way. But in private, Trump is growing increasingly frustrated by being mired in a deteriorating political situation beyond his control. On Monday morning, a Republican briefed on Trump's thinking said the president has been considering pulling Kavanaugh's nomination. We have Fancy Brian off today. Our pal Keith is stepping in. Keith, I'm going to get
Super Fancy Keith.
Cut number 10, President Trump on Kavanaugh today.
He's a fine man with an unblemished past. And these are highly unsubstantiated statements from people represented by lawyers. You should look into the lawyers doing the representation. Judge Kavanaugh is an outstanding person, and I am with him all the way. We'll see how it goes with the Senate. We'll see how it goes with the vote. I think it could be, there's a chance that this could be one of the single most unfair, unjust things to happen to a candidate for anything. But I am with Judge Kavanaugh, and I look forward to a vote. And for people to come out of the woodwork from 36 years ago and 30 years ago and never mention it, all of a sudden it happens. In my opinion, it's totally political.
To hear Donald Trump tell it, this was as unfair as a Clay Matthews late hit on the quarterback.
Nice. Or maybe Merrick Garland. Maybe that was a little unfair. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Now, Dominic, we're not going to have the sound, but we did see Mitch McConnell go to the floor of the Senate a little bit earlier today to chastise the Democrats.
Oh, Democrats are very bad.
And coming out of his mouth, under the circumstance of the Merrick Garland and the Gorsuch, I mean, shut up is what I would say.
Right.
Shut the F up.
Finishing up the Vanity Fair, according to the source, Trump allies are imploring him to cut Kavanaugh loose for the sake of saving Republicans' electoral chances in the midterms. The argument these advisors are making is that if Kavanaugh's nomination fails, demoralized Republicans will stay home in November, and Democrats will take the House and the Senate and intimate impeachment proceedings. The end result? Trump will be removed from office. The stakes are that high, the source said. Another Republican advisor told me, quote, Trump is very worried now and is finally waking up that it's the end of his presidency if he loses the Senate, unquote. Trump's outside allies are advising him to nominate Amy Coney Barrett and fast-track her confirmation before the midterms. Some in the White House think you can only appoint a woman now, a former administration official told me. An outside advisor added Democrats won't be able to pivot fast enough to attack her since she's a woman. Even before Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer reported Deborah Ramirez's account that Kavanaugh exposed his penis without her consent at Yale, which...
Does any woman ever say, yes, please stick your penis in my face, we're at a party?
Which Kavanaugh emphatically denies. Trump has been unhappy with how Senate Republicans are handling the nomination process. According to sources, Trump blamed Mitch McConnell and Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley for agreeing to delay Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's testimony until Thursday. He thinks they look weak. A Republican debriefed on Trump's thinking said, a White House official told me Trump was also angry that Senate Republicans waited hours to respond to Ford's interview with the Washington Post, creating a vacuum in the news cycle that allowed the narrative to take hold. You don't let that happen, the official said. Last week, White House advisors, including Johnny DeStefano, implored Trump not to attack Dr. Ford. A source said Bill Shine and Corey Lewandowski were pushing a more aggressive approach. Trump listened to the moderates until Friday, until he reverted to form and tweeted, I have no doubt that if an attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she says, charges would have been immediately filed with local law enforcement authorities by either her or her loving parents. As Kavanaugh's poll numbers plummet, Trump is telling people in private that he was never a fan of Kavanaugh's selection, sources said. According to two people who've spoken with Trump recently, Trump complained that establishment Republicans foisted Kavanaugh on him because they reasoned Kavanaugh would unite the party in November. According to one former West Wing official, Trump's first choice was Judge Thomas Hardiman, who served on the federal bench alongside Trump's sister, Marianne Trump Barry. Trump is keeping his distance from the nominee. A White House official said he hasn't spoken with Kavanaugh in recent days. This is Brett Kavanaugh's fight, the White House official said.
Craziness out of D.C., craziness in Trump's America. Now, the Ronan Farrow story, Dom, here's a little update to it. Brett Samuels at the Hill. The New Yorker's Ronan Farrow said Monday that a new report in which a former college classmate of Brett Kavanaugh accused the Supreme Court nominee of sexual misconduct met a high evidentiary bar. Farrow on Good Morning America disputed the claim that all those who know Kavanaugh have refuted Deborah Ramirez's claim that Kavanaugh exposed himself to her at a college party and noted that her hesitance to come forward is common among survivors of sexual abuse. Here's a quote from Farrow. It is not accurate to say those who knew him at the time dispute this. We talked to a roommate from the time that was living with him when this alleged incident took place, who said he was frequently drunk and that he took part in activity that made him unsurprised by this claim and that he found this woman credible. Folks, we're the Devil's Advocates. We're always credible. It's going to be an incredible show with you on the phones as well. 844-967-2789. Come back with us. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio. Wake up. It's Monday.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Every day we see more and more divisiveness in our country. And a president in Donald Trump who tweets and shouts and tries to distract us from getting things done in our community. But in Wisconsin, we have a senator who's fighting back and staying focused on what matters. It's Tammy Baldwin who's fighting to make health care affordable and protect people with pre-existing conditions like cancer and diabetes. She wrote the Partners Act to help men and women get vocational and technical training for jobs that can support a family. And it's Tammy Baldwin who has introduced the Fair Chance Act that would ban the box. So anyone seeking a job who's been previously incarcerated doesn't have to check a box at the beginning of the hiring process. Every day, we have a senator who's focused on what matters.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Tammy Baldwin for Senate.
Hi, Resistance Radio listeners. This is Kim Schrader, the president of the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association. We are the 4,600 educators who make Milwaukee's public education system possible. MTA members are the guardians of public education because every single day we are fighting to strengthen and protect public schools our students deserve. MTA educators are leading the fight in Milwaukee public schools for smaller class sizes, more recess, physical education, art, and music opportunities for every child in MPS. MTA educators are the champions for healthier school meals, positive discipline practices, equitable schools, and schools that partner with parents. MTA members are the guardians of public education, and we are proud to teach all children, regardless of their zip code. To learn more, follow us on Facebook at the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio. You can always hit us up on the party line, toll-free talk or text. It's real easy. It's 844-967-2789.
So if you believe the reporting of Gabriel Sherman at the Vanity Fair, Donald Trump thinks it's preferable to fire Rosenstein to take the heat off of Kavanaugh.
What?
You know, one bad news cycle just turned the page with another bad news story. You know, eventually you think some of this bad news would catch up to this man.
Well, when you come on. I mean, you can only handle one bad news cycle at a time, Crute. I mean, are you having a hard time juggling all this? I mean, let's not forget, Trump himself has to put in some report. His attorneys have to get back to the
defamation suit
case, yes, by Friday.
Summer Zervos.
By Friday. You know, groping, kissing without consent, that goes forward Friday. And there's also the continuing Mueller investigation. And now Michael Avenatti, the Stormy Daniels attorney, apparently has a third person on the hook.
A third accuser that apparently is saying that Mark Judge, Kavanaugh's high school, prep school buddy, and he used to, get him loaded, drug him up, and rape women. And I would be quick to dismiss Avenatti and say, oh, geez, this goes beyond the pale, these accusations. But what's Avenatti's track record been of late?
He's been pretty accurate.
I mean, just ask Stormy.
Full disclosure.
Yeah, the credibility. While he might come off as, a little news hoary himself, Avenatti has been right on the money with damn near every assertion he has made. They have come to fruition, perhaps a third accuser. But this newest accusation, Dominic Ronan Farrow, he's saying, or at least Deborah Ramirez is accusing Brett Kavanaugh while a freshman at Yale, sort of a dorm party, everyone's getting drunk quick, doing drinking games. We've all been there. At least you and I both have.
I was never one for drinking games. It was a little foolish.
Okay, I have done plenty of drinking games, and I don't recall ever pulling my penis out and sticking it in a girl's face, not even for humorous effect.
From the piece in the New Yorker from Ronan Farrow, we were sitting in a circle, said Ramirez. People would pick who drank. Ramirez was chosen repeatedly, she said, and quickly became inebriated. At one point, she said a male student pointed a plastic gag penis in her direction. Later, she said she was on the floor, foggy and slurring her words, as that male student and another stood nearby. Ramirez identified the two male onlookers, but at her request, the New Yorker is not naming them. A third male student then exposed himself to her. I remember a penis being in front of my face, she said. I knew that's not what I wanted, even in this state of mind. She remembered remarking, that's not a real penis, and then the other students laughing at her confusion and taunting her, and one encouraging her to kiss it. She said that she pushed the person away, touching it in the process. Ramirez, who was raised a devout Catholic in Connecticut, said that she was shaken. I wasn't going to touch a penis until I was married, she said. I was embarrassed and ashamed and humiliated. She remembers Kavanaugh standing to her right and laughing, pulling up his pants. Brett was laughing, she said. I can still see his face and his hips coming forward, like when you pull up your pants. She recalled another male student shouting about the incident. Somebody yelled down the hall, Brett Kavanaugh just put his penis in Debbie's face. She said it was his full name. I don't think it was just Brett. And I remember hearing and being mortified that this was out there. Ronan Farrell also today, as you mentioned, Curdy, talking about the credibility. Keith, going to need your help on this. Actually, we're going to get kind of short here. Should we do the our buddy?
Let's do Will Durst.
Let's do Will Durst. Very appropriate.
It's topical.
Cut one, Keith. Very topical. Let's throw that one out there.
Comedian Will Durst.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice words about the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court confirmation process, which is stumbling forward like a 10-year-old pushing a marble pedestal twice his size up a 4-story stairwell. You could say that the allegations that Kavanaugh attacked a drunken 15-year-old girl back in high school have sort of gummed up the proceedings. You could also say that blue meat should not be eaten raw. One of the big problems Republican members of the Senate Judiciary Committee are running into is the optics. All 11 members are white males. Not just white, but bordering on translucent. So they're looking to hire someone, probably a female, to ask their questions should the good doctor agree to testify a stunt senator. The conservative stance has been fluid, morphing from it didn't happen to it might have happened, but it wasn't that bad, to okay, maybe it happened and was pretty bad, but it's way too late to do anything about it. What's next? Don't worry, he'll be fine, ruling on cases from his prison cell. Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley seems to be in a hell of a hurry to get Kavanaugh his lifetime appointment to the highest court of the land by the first Monday of October when the new court convenes. And he's refusing to investigate the claims and throwing up arbitrarily imposed deadlines to further harass the person who claims to have been harassed. One reason is Kavanaugh's polling has started to sink so low, only the newest high-tech spelunking gear could detect it through sonar. 6 weeks before the midterm election, and the GOP has taken dead aim on women. Good move. Someone needs to tell these white guys that the 19th Amendment gave women the vote a couple of years ago. 99 to be exact. Hopefully, next year's Centennial Party will have a kickoff this November 6th. For WRRD 1510 AM Wisconsin's Resistance Radio, I'm Will Durst.
That's our buddy, comedian Will Durst. Glad to add his commentary here because we got a stacked show. We got fine guests coming next. Christine Neumann-Ortiz, Executive Director, Voces de la Frontera. More devils on the other side.
Join the resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off for school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Hi, everybody. If Scott Walker were made of cheese, would you eat him? I don't know, and I don't want to find out. That's why I listen to Real Resistance Radio.
Hi, my name is Shantae, your local Hyatt pharmacist. With more than 10 locations here in the Milwaukee area, we're here to simplify your lives one script at a time. With free delivery to your home or work, where all your medications are brought together in one convenient dosage packaged, individualized to your daily medication regimen. We set up in-house calls with the licensed pharmacist to assist in medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit us at our website, HAYATRX.com.
On marijuana, unfortunately, as a public health issue and a public safety issue, I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's three big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on them anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
It's a lot easier to measure how many times students use a semicolon correctly in an essay.
Educated educators talking education.
Than it is to measure how many wonderful ideas are in that essay.
Busted Pencils.
There is no teacher shortage.
With Dr. Tim Slecker.
There is a teacher exit.
Featuring Matt Damon's mom.
You want to know what my mom would say?
We've had an intrusion into education.
Busted Pencils Radio. Saturdays at 11 on Resistance Radio.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Wisconsin's first congressional district was the center of the state's political universe yesterday. Several candidates, both Democrat and Republican, campaigned in the district on Sunday. According to the Journal-Sentinel, a Republican rally drew about 36 activists and featured Scott Walker, Brad Schimmel, Leah Vukmer, Robin Voss, and Brian Steil. In the afternoon, dozens of Democrats filled a campaign office to listen to Tammy Baldwin, Tony Evers, Mandela Barnes, Josh Call, and Randy Bryce, and Sarah Goldlewski. At an event in Racine, Senator Baldwin said, quote, "Healthcare and people's access to insurance and medications they can afford is on the ballot." Monday, Milwaukee, increasing clouds, highs in the upper 60s. Madison, mostly sunny, highs in the low 70s. Tonight, mostly cloudy, lows in the low 60s. For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted.
Occupy didn't start on Wall Street. It started on our street. Tom and Cruz, the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, we've been joined live via phone by our friend Christine Neumann-Ortiz. She is the executive director, Voces de la Frontera. Christine, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate how you guys continue to inform your listeners on really the most important frontline struggles and developments. So we very much appreciate that opportunity to share what's happening with your listeners.
Christine, we were a little surprised to hear over the course of the weekend, ICE agents in the state of Wisconsin, specifically in my hometown of Madison. I know there were electeds like Mayor Paul Soglin that were taken completely flat-footed by this action. Apparently, city authorities, law enforcement were not notified. Christine, what can you tell us about these raids?
Well, we got reports that starting Friday, and then we know through Sunday, but actually we continue to get reports of continued ICE activity picking people up throughout the state, specifically Madison and Green Bay. Now, what we are very, very careful to not spread false rumors and create fear in the community. So we have a protocol around making sure that when there's a report that comes in about ICE presence or a raid, that we send people out to really corroborate that. And to date, between now, and we only get this information really from people who are being, family and friends of people who are being directly impacted by these raids. So right now we know that there's been, what's been reported to us, at least we've corroborated 18 people who were picked up by immigration agents in 11 of those in Dane County, 5 in Wausau, 2 in Green Bay, 2 in Milwaukee, and then we have reports as well from 2 other cities of at least 8 other people. And then, as I mentioned, ICE continued presence in Madison and Green Bay. I also got a call about just corroborating that, like, for example, that what, as you were mentioning at the beginning, that it really shows how ICE, it was a rogue agency, but now, just especially under the Trump administration, how it's really escalating. And some of the basic protocols that were like not even implemented, which I think are very telling, are that for example, they have protocols where they would notify the sheriff and the chief of police. And in Dane County, you have, they were, and actually the local elected officials or federal elected officials, because it's a federal agency. So all spoke out to condemn the fact that those protocols were not followed. They basically did this action around them to terrorize, and that's what happens when they carry out these actions. They terrorize communities. It wasn't just Latinos that were affected by this. There was a young man from the Hmong community who was also picked up, and that has a ripple effect in the community. And so you had Freedom Inc. that as well spoke out today. And then also that it's our understanding and that in Green Bay the same type of situation happened. We also have from families themselves, so not just from law enforcement elected officials saying, that ICE is operating in this rogue manner, but also I think one thing that at least from 2 families, one in Milwaukee that's here with us today, she drove down to speak at the press conference and is available to talk with folks today right now. And but she was reporting out how, they came into their home pretending to be police. And since it's a family that has worked with police because of issues of crime and concerns and in their neighborhood, they've always had that confidence. They opened the door. And a woman from Madison came up today to say the same thing, that's how it was the son that opened the door thinking it was the police, and it turned out to be ICE. And so we know that there's an inhumanity that is being applied. So, for example, we know of a reported case of the 2 parents being picked up and a 14-year-old child right now without parents being held in detention, even people being, picked up who are like the primary, as in most cases, and this, this has always been the case, are usually the primary breadwinners, but, just the huge impact that has on a family. But then also primary healthcare providers. So these are families that are, being put into a real desperate situation. And obviously we get reports of people afraid to take their kids, literally getting calls to say people are afraid to take their kids to school, people are afraid to leave their homes. And it's a real, and I think this just reaffirms the fact that deportations are not the answer to any kind of societal problem that we have, and that we need. And I will add this, that are also just, asking people. We need the fact that they've just also been, we do know they've been like targeting people who might have something in their record, whether that was like a voluntary departure from years ago or some old record, and then of people who have nothing. But we really feel it's important that, people, deportations are not the answer, and all they do is terrorize the community and make people less safe. So in our opinion, it truly is. This is a very intentional statewide policy that also has a political agenda. It is not a coincidence that in the lead up that Voces de la Frontera Action, our C4 arm, has been kicking off, making very public our effort to organize the statewide Latino vote in historic numbers for the November 6th election, organizing people through who they know and that much like the census, or in the same way that we've seen this type of activity get played out in the build-up to like some of the past May 1st marches, some of the big early ones, where we've seen this kind of effort to intimidate people, to scare people and their families from opening the door, from becoming engaged, that this is an effort. And our feeling is that there's been an outpouring of support from all sides. In Madison, we were able to and in other areas through this statewide network, we were able to identify, verify cases, warn people where there was ICE presence. In Madison, it was very impressive to see efforts to actually go out and protest. They actually left the hotel, but there were ICE agents staying in a hotel, and people were going to go do a direct action there. And they left before something happened, but there was protest, and we feel it's important that people really step up and in a very real way, U.S. citizens can help in many ways, and one of the ways that people can help is being part of a rapid response that really goes out to stand in solidarity with families that are being torn apart. And we are going to be organizing at this point statewide, as we always have, emergency meetings to have Know Your Rights, and then talk about integrating people into our Voceros por el Voto effort, the mobilizing the vote, because it does matter who's in power, and it's not just Trump that's driving this. You have people like Walker who have denied driver's licenses for eight years now. That is the main way that ICE is using to pick up people. You have other state people who are running for office who have, Attorney Schimmel, who have were part of the lawsuit that blocked parents of U.S. citizen children from being able to adjust their status, that would have gotten to a safer shore almost half of immigrant families here in Wisconsin. So you have people who are with us and who are against us, and Latino voters need to know who they are. And so we're going to move ahead with that and use this on the country as fuel for the fire, and also use this space to talk about what other actions people want to take. There's been students who want to do walkouts. There's been people who want to do another statewide general strike. And so we want to, as we always have, open up the process for a discussion about how we move forward and together. And I think that here in Wisconsin, we have sent a message that has been heard literally around the world. And I know that we're going to use this crisis as an opportunity to come out to a better place.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. That is Christine Neumann-Ortiz. She's the executive director, Voces de la Frontera. She joins us on the phone. Christine, reporting in the Wisconsin State Journal, a cook working for a Willie Street restaurant in Madison was picked up. Now, my understanding, listening to the conservatives about, immigration enforcement, they're going to focus on the bad guys, the bad people. But what have we found out? What do we know about the backgrounds of these undocumented workers getting picked up? Do you have any details on that?
Yeah, I mean, we do work with people to quickly assess. Are they? What is the? Is there something going? Is there something in terms of both their immigration violations or any kind of anything in the what would you consider a criminal record, for instance,
Sure.
Driving under the influence. And I would say, the main criteria that we have seen overall is, that, again, none of these people represent any kind of, the vast majority of people represent no kind of threat or anything. You have violations, for example, of immigration that are categorized as a serious violation, or basically it's you're deportable. You have, under existing law, you don't have a right to a bond, you don't have a right to a judge, and those are still injustices. So, for example, if you overstayed your visa, or if you were deported once and came back, that is considered one of the highest levels of crime, the same as trafficking drugs or trafficking people, a guns dealer. And so that's an injustice under the law. And that's where, again, the standard has to be we have to set the standard around. These are people who what we try to flush out is really the humanity of the situation. So it is different for each person. But I would even say that even in cases where someone, like let's say, for example, there are cases where they might have had, like they go back to old records, Like that's the other thing too. It's not just something recent. It's like 10, 15 years ago DUI, or in some cases if there was like a domestic violence situation. And obviously domestic violence is something that people need to be safe in safe situations, and they need that protection, which is often exactly why they reach out to law enforcement,
right,
if they ever feel they're not. But I will say, working with so many families, that actually for the majority of cases, they do that. Like, let's say it's a situation with a family, they might do that, but they're not looking for deportation because it's a problem that needs intervention, and people need to be safe, and people need help too. But it is a greater trauma for them that the kids are taken away, that the breadwinner is taken away. The kind of intervention they want and need in the vast majority of cases is not deportation. They do need intervention, but that is not helpful to the children. It's not helpful to the families. And so that's just like one example of but I will say that what we're seeing is, I would say broadly, indiscriminate. And
do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt, Christine, we're going to run out of time, but do you think purposefully so? Do you think, numerically speaking, this is a relatively small number of people that have been gathered up statewide, but it certainly catches the attention of communities. It certainly catches the attention of the media. Do you think this is purposefully random? Do you think that's part of the strategy and the timing? You mentioned 6 weeks before the midterms. Well, if you're trying to drive people underground into the shadows, seems like a few arbitrary ICE raids might be a nice way to do so.
I do. I absolutely believe that's what it is. There's no question about it, and they're going hard at it. And first of all, those are only the numbers that we know of. That's people coming forward and reporting it. So we always try to get the word out, that encouraging people the importance of coming forward and letting us know, because it's only then that we can understand the circumstances and what ICE is doing, and is through those first-hand reports, and then understand in what way is there a way to help families in this situation. It's a very rough situation to be in, because for many families, they you don't get a free attorney. You have to raise the money, and if you're eligible for a bond, often that bond can be like $5,000. You have to hire an attorney easily at $1,500. And these are low-income families, often with small children, and often the person detained being the primary or sole breadwinner. So that is and when you have a large group of people, that actually adds up to a lot of money, and it becomes a community-wide response. So they are taking advantage of people in that way too.
Christine,
because
will ICE confirm? Do they notify the family? You talked about this 14-year-old that's now effectively parentless in the short run. Do they notify the family? Do they confirm if someone's been detained? How would one even find out if mom and dad are gone when you get home from school? How would a 14-year-old child know what's happened to them?
That's one of the things that we're seeing. We're really seeing a rollback to a previous period, because that's one of the biggest things. When Voces started helping cases of deportation, which started under Bush, escalated under Obama in the first term, then because of the movement support and pressure, important wins were won, and now we're back to the whole stripping away of those human rights considerations, even under the existing system, which is, all that's gone, and it is much more, I would say, aggressive. You often have to, that's one thing that we help people find out is where's the person located. They might tell them, but that's one of the things that we're seeing now that people don't know. And it's, of course, traumatic because it's almost like frankly, I'll say state-sponsored terrorism when someone is grabbed, taken away, and you don't know where they're being held. And that is a psychological trauma, too.
Yeah.
I know there's limited time, so if it's possible, I have Giselle with me, who is...
Christine, we're like 30 seconds. I'm so sorry. We're out of time. Christine Neumann-Ortiz, Executive Director, Voces de la Frontera. There's never enough time, Christine, but we appreciate what you do. Thank you for joining us here on the Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789. We'll go to break. We'll be right back.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
The Earl Ingram Show. Join me at a new time, weekday mornings, for the Earl Ingram Show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. on Real Resistance Radio, Monday through Friday, and as always, Saturdays noon to 3. The Earl Ingram Show, streaming live at realresistanceradio.com. Don't miss it. Voice of the voiceless, champion of the working class, the Earl Ingram Show.
The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have one foot in tomorrow.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Real Resistance Radio, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and on the lines at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I want to thank Christine Neumann-Ortiz, Executive Director, Voces de la Frontera. She's a friend of ours. This article, Cap Times' Logan Rogie, I believe, something of that effect. Page 2, Greg Frank, owner, one of the co-owners of Food Fight Restaurant Group, which includes El Dorado Grill, said one of the restaurant's cooks was detained on his way to work in the parking lot of the restaurant Sunday morning. He could not confirm what organization detained the employee. We don't have any information at all other than he was on his way to work with his wife, Frank said. Now think about that. The average employer not going to be sympathetic if ICE detains one of their employees. You weren't able to make your shift. You're probably subject to termination, especially if they don't give your employer any information. I read on. He said he has no information about the cook's current whereabouts, but said the family expects to learn more Monday. He said all of the restaurant staff have the necessary documentation to work. The restaurant closed Sunday evening when it's usually open because it didn't have enough trained staff, Frank said. Our friend, Rep. Chris Taylor, Democrat from Madison, posted a message on social media about the El Dorado Grill incident, saying a constituent told her black SUVs with Illinois plates were parked outside the restaurant. Now, I had seen on social media black SUV and a red SUV. Now, I don't know if this is specifically what Chris Taylor references, but I'll read a quote from her. I think it's just super alarming for ICE to be in our community and not at all communicating with anybody in law enforcement. It's created real panic in the community. Madison Police Sergeant Harrison Sanders said Sunday he did not have information on whether ICE was starting to give prior notice to the police department or the number of detentions in the city, but said he expected the department would gather information on the situation to share in the coming days. Dane County Sheriff, our friend Dave Mahoney, said no one from ICE has communicated with the sheriff's office in regard to recent detentions. And our friends at Voces de la Frontera said community members reported that some incidences involved ICE agents who falsely identified themselves as police. Now, Christine Neumann-Ortiz described that circumstance for us just a few moments ago. Madison Mayor Paul Soglin said Sunday he intends to meet Monday morning with law enforcement officials and community organizers to get a better idea of the situation. He plans to attend a news conference Monday afternoon at the Centro Hispana of Dane County to provide an update on the situation. Attempts to contact ICE on Sunday were unsuccessful. Apparently, ICE doesn't return calls on the weekends, huh?
And apparently they don't notify folks when they roll to town as well. Maybe they don't want, the local politicians giving heads up to the community, right? Congressman Mark Pocan tweeted out as well, if you encounter ICE officials and have questions regarding your legal rights and defense, call 608-242-6260 to be connected with Immigration Legal Services. Again, Congressman Mark Pocan. This is in his backyard, your backyard, Crudy. 608-242-6260 to be connected with Immigration Legal Services.
Well, it wasn't just Dane County. It wasn't just Madison. It was also Milwaukee.
Green Bay.
And Green Bay.
Yeah.
Hit 3 major media markets, almost like it was purposeful, almost like they wanted people to notice all around
the major media markets. Wausau, too.
Sure, we'll throw that one in with the rest.
For the up northers, and that's where you go.
Relatively speaking. Yeah. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Got another big hour ahead. Hell, we got a big 2 hours ahead. But coming up next, Dana Schultz. She is the Executive Director of Wisconsin Voices. I recommend voting. And early voting, it's now open in Milwaukee. We're going to talk about that next. Get out there. Vote the bums out. All of them. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Real Resistance Radio. Your calls welcome here. 844-967-2789.
Ever worry that the anonymous millionaires are setting the agenda for our community with little or no accountability? I do. That's why I joined Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. My fellow members and I want to build a powerful and lasting progressive movement. Together, we can help determine the agenda in our own communities. Then we work with professional organizers and a team of leading strategists to make that agenda happen. We're working on health care, economic justice, child poverty, electing progressive candidates, and more. And our Radio Active campaign supports this station and the Resistance Radio Network. So, won't you come help us build a movement?
Become a member of the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. Go to citizenactionwy.org.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Under fire, Kavanaugh defense. I'm Mike Moss. Utah Senator Orrin Hatch says it's up to the president whether he fires the man overseeing the Mueller Russia probe, but he thinks there will be problems for the president if he does fire Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein.
Well, I think if he did something like that, it would cause a furor that I don't think we need right now.
The president meets face-to-face with Rosenstein Thursday, as we hear from correspondent Linda Kenyon.
Rosenstein was here at the White House for meetings, leading to widespread reports that he was going to tender his resignation. But a statement from the White House press secretary dispels that. It reads, at the request of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, he and President Trump had an extended conversation to discuss the recent news stories. Because the president is at the UN General Assembly and has a full schedule with leaders from around the world, they will meet on Thursday when the president returns to Washington, D.C.
Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and his wife will be on Fox News tonight as Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell accuses Democrats of smearing Kavanaugh after two women accused him of sexual assault.
Let's put aside this last-minute unsubstantiated smear. Let's return to the facts. Let's have a fair hearing on Thursday.
Thursday, Kavanaugh and one of his accusers will testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
The plan is still to move forward with Thursday's testimony from Judge Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, the first woman who accused him of sexual assault. Chairman Chuck Grassley's spokesman says the committee will also look into this new allegation of sexual misconduct by Ramirez. But Democrats are demanding an immediate postponement of the confirmation proceedings and renewing their call for the FBI to investigate.
Correspondent Jessica Schneider. The president says there will be a second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
There's no hurry. We got back 3 months ago or so.
President's in New York through Wednesday for meetings at the UN. On Wall Street, the Dow closed down 181 S&P.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Tune in to Real Resistance Radio. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's The Forum with Sherwin Hughes from 8 to 11. Then from 11 to 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's the Brian Kelly Show. Then from 3 to 6, it's the Devil's Advocates. Mandatory listening. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Now, that's 800-400-LUNG.
A California judge has granted a request by the attorneys for Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter and his wife to review evidence the Department of Justice says proves the two engaged in campaign fraud.
Hunter and his wife have been indicted on charges they used $250,000 in campaign contributions for personal expenses like clothing, vacations, groceries, tuition, and more, then falsified records to show those expenses were for campaign events, such as the Wounded Warriors Project. Hunter has always maintained this is a political move by the Democrats and a corrupt DOJ.
This is the Department of Justice that we're watching on TV lie, show how political they are, show their corruption.
The judge has not set a trial date yet, but has ordered the couple back in court December 3rd for another status hearing. I'm Jim Roop.
President Trump says he's an absolute no on statehood for Puerto Rico, while critics, including San Juan Mayor Carmen Cruz, are in office. His comments came in an interview with Geraldo Rivera on Cleveland.
Join the resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
I'm jumping in with my clothes on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Indoor baseball, anyone?
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
5-9, your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Tuesday is National Voter Registration Day, and Madison, Milwaukee, and other Wisconsin cities are hosting events where people can learn how to register for the November election. If people are unable to register online, they can register at the public library, where they can also go over what counts as a valid ID and proof of residence. Voces de la Frontera confirmed at least 12 people were arrested by ICE in Wisconsin on Saturday, including at least 9 people in the Madison area and 1 in Wausau, Green Bay, and Milwaukee, respectively. Madison officials say ICE had detained 6 immigrants without prior communication with the police department. According to Madison Police Chief Mike Colville, the department has an agreement with ICE to know when and where arrests are made. For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted.
The following program is a presentation of DC Communications, LLC. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we've got another guest who joins us right from the top of Hour 2. She is Dana Schultz. She is the Executive Director, Wisconsin Voices. The occasion, early voting has started in Milwaukee. Dana, welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Hello, Dana.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Hey, Dana. Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. Before we talk about the importance of early voting, Dana, do me a favor. Tell me a little bit more about Wisconsin Voices.
Yeah, Wisconsin Voices. So I run an a cappella group.
Can I join?
Yes. Let's hear it. Let's hear your part.
You don't want to hear that.
You don't
Dana.
want that. No one wants that, Dana.
Oh gosh. This is what I tell my cousins who I don't want, at Thanksgiving when I don't want to get into politics. But no, Wisconsin Voices. So I have the privilege. We run a network where we have 62 progressive nonprofits in Wisconsin, and what we do is we unify groups around a couple of really big things. One, this idea of we actually need a real democracy. So we set an agenda around voting rights, around fair maps, around money in politics, around the census, around judicial ethics, and we make sure there's a proactive. We've been in the very much defensive mode the last, 8 years, but we have a proactive plan to move those policies forward in the state. And then the second thing we do is we unify groups around getting out the vote, especially to new voters, to unlikely voters, people who've never had to cast a ballot, who've never had the opportunity, maybe they just turned 18 or just got off paper and parole. And we make sure any barrier that can be mapped, we have resources. We have people encouraging, motivating, and making sure everyone is out there voting, and we increase the likelihood of young people, people of color, and unmarried women of casting a ballot.
Dana, you'd like to think that getting out the vote would be a nonpartisan effort, but it seems here in the state of Wisconsin, there's one party that has, been downright suppressive of the vote if they are able, between the rollback of early voting times, the rollback of souls to the polls, the roll out of voter ID and one of the most stringent voter ID requirements in the nation. Dana, I see Democratic lawmakers, on the other hand, getting out there at rallies today and trying to get people out to early vote. Why did voting become a partisan issue?
Well, let me back up hundreds of years and remind y'all that the franchise, the constitutional right to vote and have your voice heard, it's not a new political football, but actually so many measures that we're still dealing with today were designed to stop people from voting, right? So I know As a woman, I could only vote since the last 100 years as a white woman. But, voter registration was designed to stop black people from voting. And frankly, it's still being used as a way to make it harder for students, make it harder for people who move a lot, make it harder for black and brown communities who are already intimidated by the government for a variety of good reasons, to just make it more difficult or ask a lot more intimidating questions to vote. So I just want to put this last decade in Wisconsin into some larger context of this is actually not new for a lot of communities. But you are right. We have seen many different angles and it's been pretty much down partisan lines to stop, to tweak, to modify, to change, to cut off on the margins, different ways of cutting off people's access to vote. So in the past 8 years, since Scott Walker and the Republicans have been in charge, we've seen 37 different changes to laws around democracy, to laws around voting rights, a lot of them having to do with the changes of adding photo ID. We have one of the most restrictive photo ID laws in the country, and changes to early voting. And that one's, I have to say, a lot of people understand. They get photo ID. They're like, I got a photo ID. What's the big deal? But early voting really struck a nerve. People were like, oh, why is it a problem that Milwaukee has more sites than the city of Athens, where I grew up, of 900? Scratch your head. It's kind of like their agenda became pretty much more obvious with some of these other changes. There was no reason to make proof of residence more restrictive to register to vote. That made a very narrow list of things that you could do to register. So some of this just went too far, and people are seeing that gosh, I might vote some sort of way, but I actually believe that everyone should have the right to vote, and that the Republicans in the past couple years have been going way too far.
Now, Dana, how much do you think it factors in, talking about the Roberts Supreme Court and their rollback of the Voting Rights Act? It was my impression that gave license, especially to Republicans. I mean, all the protections that had been in place through the Voting Rights Act, as soon as they were eliminated or rolled back by the Supreme Court, the Republicans were right back at it, trying to take away people's right to vote, enacting Jim Crow laws. Isn't that exactly what the law was there to protect us against?
It's a real big problem that the Federal Voting Rights Act has been really just kind of erased. And what we're left with is a state-by-state system where some states you have folks that are running rampant on new and interesting ways to suppress the vote. And we're seeing that here. Wisconsin, unfortunately, has been gone from one of the best states and had some of the most open and transparent laws regarding voting, regarding transparency of money in politics, regarding our maps and the way we conducted ourselves with elections, to one of the worst states. And they tried to take away same-day registration. And I have to tell you guys, at one point in time, 84% of all people who vote in Wisconsin have registered on Election Day. It's part of our culture. It's part of just like, yeah, of course you should be able to register and vote on Election Day. That's what Election Day is for. And they even tried to take that away. They didn't get away with it because, again, they went too far, and frankly, too many Republicans same-day register too. But it just goes to show they're on a vengeance to really chip away at the franchise and try to consolidate their power.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. Dana Schultz, Executive Director of Wisconsin Voices, joins us on the phone talking about early voting. So, Dana, early voting opens today. Where can I find information on where I can go vote? Do I go to my normal polling places? How do I go about this, and how is it different from absentee voting?
Well, actually, what early voting is just early absentee voting, and it's just you're able to do it in person. So instead of sending away for an absentee ballot and then, on your own you fill it out and send it back in, you get to go to a location. So all around the country, all around the state of Wisconsin, this was actually one of a huge victory. A couple of our partners joined in on a lawsuit that fought back against some of the restrictive policies, and they won. The Seventh Circuit Court said, yep, having just one location for each city doesn't make any sense when you have some cities like Milwaukee, like Madison, and Green Bay that just have a lot of people, and geographically we need more spots. So today is the first day to early vote or in-person absentee vote in Milwaukee. I actually had the privilege. I casted my ballot already.
Nice.
Can you believe it? Woo! It was kind of thrilling to just get that done. Now it frees up my next 42 days. What do we got for the election?
Yeah, about that.
Who's counting? Dana, let me ask you, do I need an excuse if I want to go in person early absentee vote? Do I need to give the excuse, I got a trip planned on election day? Do I need to give any rationale or reason to go and vote early in the state of Wisconsin?
Nope, you don't. They don't. All they ask for is, hey, are you registered? You can register there. They treat that early absentee you can register there if you're not registered at your current address. So they'll make sure that that has happened, or you can do it there. Bring something that shows where you live. That's official. And then they'll ask for a Wisconsin photo ID, and that's all they should be asking for. So no other excuses, no reason. They just should be encouraging and make sure you're registered, and then you got something that shows your face, a Wisconsin ID that shows your face to your name.
And Dana, where can people look up and find a list of the polling places for early voting?
Yeah, well, go ahead to our location and hours on. We have a website, wisconsinvoices.org /early vote. MKE has all the specifics in Milwaukee. We're continuing to add on our Facebook, Wisconsin Voices, early voting sites around the state. Some, are opening now, like this week. Some are opening in a few weeks. And we want to make sure we have, shareable content, little images and memes and things like that you can share on your Facebook site in Racine, in Kenosha, in Appleton, in Green Bay, all around the state. Definitely Madison and Milwaukee are kind of kicking butt in terms of having the most sites per city. So Wisconsin Voices Facebook page has all that content for you to use and share and learn about.
My understanding, Dana, there are 3 locations in Milwaukee open immediately at the Zeidler Municipal Building, that's on North Broadway, the Midtown Center, that's on West Capitol Drive, and the Mitchell Street Library, surprisingly, on Mitchell Street. Dana, what's the advantage of voting early? Why should people endeavor to vote early, in your opinion?
Gosh, I'll give you a few reasons. Well, first of all, Mitchell Street Library is this beautiful new library. Check it out. And I was just at the Midtown location. They actually have a Midtown Early Vote Challenge put out by the alderman in the district, Chevy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He put out the Midtown Challenge saying we had over 21,000 people cast their ballot in 2016 to early vote there. And he's challenging Zeidler and Mitchell Street to match that. So that was exciting. I wonder how that's going to go down. But let's see. Here's the reason to go early vote. Number one, you can any city of Milwaukee person or any city. You don't have to go to your specific location, but if you're driving past Midtown and going to Pick and Save, you just pop over and do it. You don't have to worry about matching up your specific address to your specific voting location. Any city of Milwaukee resident or within your city, you can go to any of the locations that are open. Number two reason to early vote is obviously it's not just a random Tuesday. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's some Saturday options. I think there's some Sunday options, but geez, I should have that information. And so there's some weekend times. There's some more flexible hours and definitely days. So you don't have to worry about that random specific Tuesday that you might be out of town or you don't know what's going on.
Or the boss might not let you go vote, might not like your politics, let's say.
Well, guys, just so you know on that, it is Wisconsin law that an employer has to let you go.
Yes.
If it's unpaid time, you get 3 hours, an excused absence of unpaid time. So it is a state law that employers got to let you go.
But Dana, effectively, if people get out and they early vote, they're not going to have to deal, hopefully, with the long lines on election days. It's a convenience as well to the voter.
Yeah, no, it's doing others a service. I mean, we're trying to, I think the more votes we bank and the more you can be a part of that, encouraging people, honestly, the less likelihood you forget, the less likelihood you run into longer lines on Election Day. And, you know, if you're someone who, like me, I've been moving, I almost move every year, every other year for the past 15 years of my life. That's pretty common for younger folks. And you got to re-register every time. So I was a poll observer at UW-Milwaukee, which will be a site coming up. It's going to be a site, one of the 5 additional sites at UW-Milwaukee. And I was there, you know, I had someone who, like, they had to come back 3 times because they forgot they didn't have their thing to register, and again and again and again. So they were persistent, but I would say about early vote is it's kind of an insurance policy. If you forget or you don't have it, it's not going away until Election Day. You still got a second shot to make sure you have everything you need to be registered and have your photo ID.
Early voting now open in Milwaukee will remain open until Sunday, November 4th. Dana Schultz, Executive Director, Wisconsin Voices. Find their website at wisconsinvoices.org. And we'll be messaging along with you, fine folks. Dana, thank you so much for joining us here on the Devil's Advocates. Everybody go vote today.
Can I ask one more thing, one more resource?
Yes.
Oh, hey, text the word VOTE to 864-237, and we'll send you updates and early voting information. So text the word VOTE to 864-237, nonpartisan information you can share with your friends and family.
Thank you so much. Dana Schultz, Executive Director, Wisconsin Voices. More Devil's Advocates, Real Resistance Radio.
Sacred duty.
Divisiveness in our country, and a president in Donald Trump who tweets and shouts and tries to distract us from getting things done in our community. But in Wisconsin, we have a senator who's fighting back and staying focused on what matters. It's Tammy Baldwin who's fighting to make health care affordable and protect people with pre-existing conditions like cancer and diabetes. She wrote the Partners Act to help men and women get vocational and technical training for jobs that can support a family. And it's Tammy Baldwin who has introduced the Fair Chance Act that would ban the box. So anyone seeking a job who's been previously incarcerated doesn't have to check a box at the beginning of the hiring process. Every day, we have a senator who's focused on what matters.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Tammy Baldwin for Senate.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
The Devil's Advocates.
James Santelle, he's a former U.S. attorney. He's our guest live on Brady.
Once again, a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen, to talk about the latest news breaking as we speak.
The FBI raided Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney, but once they got there, then they went back and got a more thorough warrant and said, we'll take everything.
My first reaction is you need to teach criminal constitutional law. You've got it just right in terms of the process.
They are kind of a big deal.
This is a really big deal.
Do you have the time?
The Devil's Advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming live on YouTube and Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio. And the phone lines open, 844-967-2789.
Tom, I'm excited. Early voting has begun right here in Milwaukee and many communities all across the state of Wisconsin. Check with your local city clerk. Go bank your vote. Don't wait in the long lines on Election Day. And make it easier on the poll workers.
I've never early voted, but I think I'm going to this year.
I did early vote for Mary Burke, I believe, in the last election.
Yeah.
I like voting on Election Day. But, you know, I'm kind of in the field. I'm a junkie. I got to go out and talk to the peoples on Election Day. But that doesn't mean I would not encourage you, who may not have the flexibility of schedule that I have, get out there, get your vote banked early vote. Thank you, Dana Schultz, Executive Director, Wisconsin Voices. Again, wisconsinvoices.org. I also scribbled down the text number, text vote to 864-237, and they will tell you where to go. Dom, Tammy Baldwin in town to rally the troops, let people know about early voting today. And in the course of doing that, she was approached by the press. And of course, they asked her for comment on the Brett Kavanaugh. What'd she have to say?
According to Bill Glauber from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Senator Baldwin said this. Baldwin found Ford's allegations, quote, to be serious, to be credible. And the normal way of dealing with things with presidential nominees would be to reopen the background investigation. Background investigations are done routinely for every nominee. It's part of the vetting process. It is also shared with the White House as well as with the Senate for its advice and consent role. Baldwin says she did not understand, quote, why the White House has refused to reopen the background investigation. But now that there are some more allegations, I certainly don't know the details of the additional allegations, it seems like the call should be stronger to reopen that. Baldwin opposes Kavanaugh's nomination, but Crudy Nurse Ratchet, Leah Vukmer, well, she supported Kavanaugh and issued a statement Monday.
Dom, does that mean we can put Leah Vukmer on team sexual assault?
Team rape?
Team rape.
Nurse Ratchet said this today, quote, on the heels of Senator Baldwin not having the time to meet with Judge Kavanaugh, yet having time for a fundraiser with Dr. Ford's lawyers, we now have additional uncorroborated attacks on Judge Kavanaugh being irresponsibly published by the fake news media.
Fake news media? Well, Dom, I've got more of the fake news media and accusations against Brett Kavanaugh. The Guardian reporting at this hour, third woman expected to make accusations of sexual misconduct. We've heard the name before. Attorney Michael Avenatti says third woman reached out about sexual misconduct allegations against the Supreme Court nominee. Joanna Walters reporting a third woman is expected to publicly make accusations of sexual misconduct against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh this week. Her attorney, Michael Avenatti, said on Monday, she reached out to me, we vetted her claim, and she satisfactorily passed that vetting. Avenatti, unlike Kavanaugh. Avenatti said of the new accuser in an interview with The Guardian. Avenatti said the woman, who also asked to testify at a hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday, which we'll hear from California professor Christine Blasey Ford, who was alleged the judge drunkenly sexually assaulted her while in high school. The fresh allegations relate to Kavanaugh's school days when he attended the elite Georgetown prep school in Maryland, where Ford has already accused him of a violent sexual attack at a party. He was 17, she was 15 at the time. A second accuser, Deborah Ramirez, came forward Sunday to say Kavanaugh exposed himself to her at a party when he was a freshman at Yale. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Got a fine guest joining us next live via phone. Former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. He's a friend of ours. He is a fine resource. Want to find out the red herring, the Rosenstein, the threatened firing of Rosenstein. Well, how's that affect
Join the
MuellerTime?
resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
You're not wired to have a response to this sound. But when we introduce a new stimulus, save the food, we're helping to stop food waste. Save the food. For tips and recipes, visit SaveTheFood.com. Brought to you by NRDC and the Ad Council.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Hi, this is Demi, pharmacist at Hyatt, locally owned pharmacy in the community of Milwaukee. Simplifying lives, one prescription at a time is our goal. Do free delivery of your medications to your home and at work. All your meds are brought together in one convenient dosage package individualized to your medication needs. We set up a house call with a licensed pharmacist to assist with medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit our website, HAYATRX.com.
Hi, I'm State Representative Jocasta Zamaripa, and I need you to vote and make your voice heard in this election. Vote for your health care. Vote for your schools. Vote for your neighborhood. Vote for change and hope instead of division and fear. And starting Monday, September 24th, skip the line and vote early. Go to myvote.wi.gov for more information on your polling place. And thank you for being a voter.
Paid for by Ford with Jocasta.
The Western Scrub Jay. I was taking my science class on a virtual reality bird-watching expedition. All of a sudden, Charlie Kane shouts, "Arr! Arr!" He had spotted the elusive black swift, a bird rarely seen in the wild. For a brief moment, Charlie had not the eyes of a 9-year-old boy. He had the eyes of an eagle.
Teachers just have better work stories. Find out how creative teaching can be at teachdfw.org. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, exclusively on Real Resistance Radio. Call in live at 844-967-2789 and give your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on local and national topics. Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m., it will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes on Real Resistance Radio. Always streaming live on realresistanceradio.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Legendary Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Bob Woodward is coming to Milwaukee to discuss his new book about the president called Fear, Trump in the White House. Woodward will appear at the Riverside Theater on October 25th. The reporter is best known as one half of the team of Woodward and Bernstein who broke the story about Watergate in the 1970s. The new Pfizer Forum will be the site for a free conference on healing from the epidemic of psychological trauma this Wednesday night. Several speakers will address the conference, including Milwaukee native Oprah Winfrey via video. The Wednesday night event is free, but you must pre-register at sta.org. Weather, Milwaukee, increasing clouds, highs in the upper 60s today. Madison, mostly sunny, highs in the low 70s. Tonight, mostly cloudy, lows in the low 60s. Tuesday, partly sunny with a chance of rain, highs in the mid-70s. Wednesday, mostly sunny and cool, highs in the low 60s. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we welcome back a fine guest, a friend of ours. He's James Santelle, a former U.S. attorney. Jim, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Mike and Dom, it's once again good to be with you on a Monday afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Jim, if we had to skip a week, if Trump didn't have some outrage each and every week, man, we'd lose touch.
We would. But it's good to talk and lots of activity both today and apparently on Thursday as well, as we're finding out now.
Yeah, we'll check back with you about your Thursday afternoon schedule, Jim. Before we jump into the newest, let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh, this U.S. Supreme Court nominee, and suddenly he's got some troubles. He's got 1, 2, and perhaps, if you believe Michael Avenatti, and his track record's been fairly good, there could be 3 identified accusers between now and Thursday. Jim, what's your thought? Is this guy going to make it through the gauntlet?
My own sense is that those people, admittedly, principally on the Democratic side of this effort, if you will, to address all these situations, that those folks who are advocating for an investigation are the right ones. Now, that's plainly not going to happen between now and Thursday, but there was some talk, some very legitimate and appropriate talk about doing this in the right way, which is to pursue an investigation in which you talk to the accusers, you determine whether or not there's any corroborating information, evidence, even decades later. You see if there are other people who may have been around at the time. The FBI, the eye of FBI is investigation. This is what they do. And again, it is my view that the Senate committee has missed a wonderful opportunity here, an appropriate opportunity to do what it should have done to determine not only credibility, but in fact, pretty much what happened here. Now, it may not have been decisive, but again, I think it's in history, this is going to be looked back upon as a missed opportunity, and instead we're going ahead with hearings that regrettably may or may not disclose exactly what happened all of these years ago. From a prosecutor's investigative standpoint, that's what should have happened here, even if it delayed this process a couple more weeks. And again, it's not too late, but it looks as if the clock is in fact ticking, and that will not happen.
Jim, is there any interpretation that we as citizens can get from this? FBI, apparently, if you listen to the Republicans, they vetted them like 6 times. If there's 1, 2, and now maybe 3 incidences out there, should we have confidence that the FBI is vetting properly? How should we interpret this?
Sure. I think that it's a legitimate criticism, if you will, of the process, but understand, too, that even a vetting of anyone, I was vetted several times during the course of my career, certainly as a United States attorney. While it is exhaustive and as further up you go in government, the more specific and detailed those investigations become, they're not going back necessarily and talking to your high school algebra teacher. They're not necessarily talking to the people who are down the hallway from you, even in your first year of college, those kinds of things. They're trying to determine presently, today, if there is some reason why you should not hold this position of responsibility. Are you subject to blackmail? Is there something about your financial situation, something else about your life that is not known that could expose you in some way to compromise your position? And a lot of it's focused on the present. Yes, it's about information from the past that's present. And so this notion that the FBI would go back for every investigation and determine what's happened to you from the day you were born until the time that you are nominated is simply not true. So again, I'm not a critic of the FBI for not finding these things in the past. It is wildly dependent upon people coming forward, especially in this situation where the history has been long and it's been many years. They will then, again, be able to go back and make some determinations about all those things I described before. So I do still believe that the FBI could have, had it been given the opportunity, given us a whole lot more credible information from an expert standpoint about whether or not the 2 and now 3 women are credible, or whether the nominee is credible in denying flatly and completely and unconditionally their allegations against him.
Got a fine guest live via phone. He's James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. Before we move on and we talk about Rosenstein, got to ask you, there seems to be reporting of credible allegations, not just of sexual misconduct on behalf of this nominee, but also lying under oath. Jim, Patrick Leahy seems to implicate Brett Kavanaugh in perjury. Want to get your interpretation on that. Seems like this guy had access to some stolen documents and has subsequently lied about it under oath. What's your take, Jim?
Right. Once again, this goes back to his testimony at the time that he was nominated by a former president to serve on where he is now serving, which is the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. And in that connection, one of the not insignificant scandals, but a scandal from the past had to do with whether or not a staffer involved and associated with the Republicans on the Capitol Hill who had gotten a hold of some Democratic documents, some internal materials about strategy and policy, and really had what we call today hacked into the Democratic information base and disclosed those and gotten those to Republicans. He was a fellow named Manuel Miranda. And again, it's out there in terms of the history. The question was asked of Judge Kavanaugh whether or not he knew about that, what was his involvement at the time. And he, at the time of his prior appearance before the same committee, again, at the time he was being nominated for the appellate court position that he holds now, fairly unequivocally said that I was not involved in that, and I had no knowledge about it, and the committee moved on. Senator Leahy has certainly suggested in his questions and perhaps some other information that he may have that may have not been true, and perhaps there are some emails, some other documents suggesting that Brett Kavanaugh was much more involved in that Miranda disclosure of documents matter than he was. Again, perjury, a very difficult thing for any prosecutor to show. You have to have the intent to lie. You have to have the purposeful mission, if you will, to deceive. And simple misrecollection is not sufficient. But again, it does raise additional questions in the midst of this other very, very significant matter about his credibility. And so all of this begins to add up and prompts, again, the Senate Judiciary Committee appropriately to look at all this. Again, my strong advocacy still is, while they may be skilled in doing questioning, they're not investigators on these kinds of things. And there is an agency out there that we know well that is.
Yeah, they've got an I right in their name for investigation, it would seem.
Exactly.
Jim, let me ask you, the doppelganger theory, there's a former, I believe he was a Justice Alito clerk, Whelan, his name. He's a Kavanaugh crony, and apparently he worked with a PR firm to put out this very elaborate conspiracy theory that it wasn't really Brett Kavanaugh that assaulted Blasey Ford. It was some other guy that kind of looks like him, and he used like a floor plan from Zillow. And my understanding is he was on Blasey Ford's LinkedIn page 90 minutes before her name was released publicly by the Washington Post. What do you think the connection there might be? And if Brett Kavanaugh knew about it, informed his crony, told his buddy, hey, get something out there, would this be a disqualifying act for a, considered justice on the court?
Again, all goes to his credibility. That great question, Mike, underscores once again the issue of who should be looking at that and who can get to the bottom of that. This is the doppelganger theory. If you say that, as you say, that we've got the wrong guy here, this is somebody else was engaged with this sexual assault activity. Again, what agency is good in ferreting out all of that, making determinations about who was looking at websites when, talking to witnesses, figuring out if there are any material documents, even transactional things that show who was where when, what the venue may have been, all those kind of corroborating witnesses. With all due respect, once again, to the United States Senate Judiciary Committee, that's what the FBI does. And they can go out and we've got agents throughout the country. They can go and talk to people. They can do this fairly expeditiously. Often there are documents, transactional documents, as we have talked about before in the connection with the Mueller investigation, that can show not only telephone records, but also bank records and movements of money, all those kinds of things the FBI can get, whether it's through a grand jury system or through other subpoenas or through confrontation of witnesses. They're the ones who could get to the bottom of this doppelganger theory. And my own view, of course, is probably debunk it fairly quickly. But again, as long as that is not done, those kinds of theories will fester and they will continue.
Folks, we've got a fine guest, James Santelle, a former U.S. attorney, live via phone. Jim, the Vanity Fair came out. Gabriel Sherman reported that the Rosenstein, this threatened resignation / firing and meeting at the White House this morning, that this was all cooked up by Donald Trump in some strange effort to distract from Kavanaugh's accusers. Jim, wanted to get your take on this red herring theory that Rosenstein is really all about distracting from Kavanaugh.
There certainly is some record in our recent past, in our nation's history, to indicate that whether it's tweets, other information released into the public, the timing of them is also frequently put right in the middle of another matter that, again, is seemingly intended to distract our attention. I don't know that I subscribe to that particular situation here, especially since it was some good reporting out there from some of our good news agencies that initially disclosed what set this in motion recently, which is that Rod Rosenstein, the acting attorney general, and the deputy attorney general may have said in these conversations, gosh, do you want me to wear a wire when I'm with the president, and also may have invoked the 25th Amendment. That came out of good reporting. And again, we can debate, who knows whether or not Rod Rosenstein, as many people are speculating, was being facetious or with his tongue in his cheek or whether it was something more. But I think it's those events and that reporting that began to break on Friday that has prompted Again, the Rosenstein visit to the White House this morning, presumably speaking with the chief of staff. The president is playing in New York at the United Nations today and tomorrow. And again, we've got this promise now that the president will come back to Washington, D.C. and talk directly to the acting attorney general for purposes of the Mueller investigation on Thursday. All of this, again, as we talked before, happens in the midst of all of these other significant things. The Kavanaugh nomination, we plainly have some significant international issues with tariffs going on right now, many, many other issues. And so, if nothing more, it is a full employment process for our wonderful news media in this country.
Jim, if Rosenstein is fired or resigns, who's up next? Who's in charge then of the Mueller investigation?
So this is the question of the day, right? So there are a couple of different ways that this can go. Inside the Department of Justice, like most organizations, there is an organizational charge, and it has boxes and it's got lines. Rod Rosenstein right now, of course, is the acting attorney general. Why? Because Jeff Sessions famously recused himself. Why? Because he was involved with the campaign. An appropriate thing to make, decision to make. President is angry, as we know, with the attorney general for making that determination. But Rod Rosenstein in charge, overseeing Bob Mueller. That's why this is so very significant. If the president, from my perspective, unwisely decides to terminate and fire Rod Rosenstein from that position, what happens next? Well, typically it would go to the Associate Attorney General. Regrettably, in this situation, the Senate confirmed Associate Attorney General, a woman who was also much in the news until recently, Rachel Brand. She resigned. So presently, there is an acting Associate Attorney General. Under the rules as they are set forth, the acting Attorney General cannot then become the Deputy Attorney General. You then need to go to another position. Well, actually, what I've skipped over here is actually the next person in line, who is the Solicitor General, and that's a person named Noel Francisco. The interesting situation there, of course, is that Noel Francisco himself, who's been the Solicitor General is the individual who argues cases in front of the Supreme Court on behalf of the government. Noel Francisco has been there for about a year. He would then presumably be the next in line after Rod Rosenstein and before the Associate Attorney General I've just spoken about. Here is the difficulty with Noel Francisco, who is otherwise a good lawyer and certainly knows what he is doing in terms of the professional work that he does. He recently came from Jones Day, which is a law firm that has previously represented the Trump campaign. And so there are many folks out there who would say that Noel Francisco likewise should be recused because of his former association with his former law firm. And that's when then, if that happens, if he recuses himself, then we go to the Associate Attorney General. There's no one there. And then we go to a fellow named Steve Engel, who is the Assistant Attorney General for something called the Office of Legal Counsel, that writes opinions and drafts official policy statements, if you will, legal opinions on behalf of the Department of Justice. So we are marching down the Department of Justice structural list. Again, Francisco is first. We skip over the Associate Attorney General. We go to the AAG for legal counsel. And I could go on for 10 more minutes about all the other people in that very elaborate organizational chart. If, in fact, we continue to either fire or people resign, it gets very, very complicated. There is another process here also that has been much mentioned today. It's called the Vacancies Reform Act of 1998. In the event, it basically says that the president does have the authority to fill an executive branch position after the incumbent dies, resigns, or is otherwise unable to serve. So if Rod Rosenstein would resign, and again, my own prediction today is Rod Rosenstein, who I know will not resign. I do not believe he will do that. But if he should resign, arguably under that circumstance, the president could replace Rod Rosenstein with, get this, any other also presidentially appointed and confirmed person inside the executive branch. That's a very, very broad number of people that he could choose from, including sitting United States attorneys from around the country. And so that's a very broad statement of the landscape here. A lot of this depends on whether there's a resignation as opposed to a firing. But the most immediate answer to your question, it goes to the Solicitor General, Noel Francisco, Steve Engel, and then we march down the list, unless there's a resignation here, in which case we may be seeing some names here that we have not, at least nationally, seen before.
Of course, Jim, begs the question, what happens to Mueller if Rosenstein is the direct supervisor because of the recusal of Jeff Sessions, and Rosenstein either resigns or gets canned by Donald Trump? Well, that seemingly is a circumstance that Trump's been seeking, because if he can put his compliant crony in that job, well, he can turn around and fire the special counsel. And then what happens?
Precisely. So the president, from most perspectives, most legal perspectives, does not have the capacity to fire Bob Mueller directly. As you've just indicated, Mike, it is plainly the acting attorney general in this case, or whoever, whether it's Rosenstein or someone else, would need to do that. And so that's why this question, this discussion we're having right now is so very, very critically important. And again, I am very hopeful that the president will not fire Rod Rosenstein. I'm quite confident Rod Rosenstein will not on his own resign. But if either one of those two should happen, whether it's Thursday or Friday, then we are in a very bad situation, just because it certainly looks as if, once again, the president is trying to do what we have said on your program many times that he cannot do. You can't fire your way out of this problem, and you would certainly hope that whoever takes Rod Rosenstein's position, whether it is Noah Francisco or others, would adopt the Rosenstein position, that is, that he should not be firing Bob Mueller or otherwise interfering with this legitimate investigation.
Jim Santelle, got to wrap it up, but is firing Rosenstein, is it a trap?
Is it a trap for politics in Washington, D.C. Generally? And I guess we will wait and see on that. We'll see what the next few days may bring.
Well, here's the good news. We only have to wait till Thursday, probably. Thank you so much, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, a fine guest, a friend of ours. Jim, we'll check in later in the week, perhaps.
I suspect we'll talk again soon, my friends. Have a good week.
Thank you, sir. You too. Thanks, Jim.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Nothing but the best guests around here. You can always join us on the phones. They're open for you and toll free at 844-967-2789.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
I am sick and tired of big power brokers telling voters what's important instead of the other way around. So I joined the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. It's a community of like-minded local progressives where the members help determine what issues are important. And with the aid of professional organizers and some of the top progressive strategists in Wisconsin, we make the powers that be take notice and action. We're working on fair elections, the climate crisis, immigrant rights, electing progressive candidates, and more. Plus, we have a campaign called Radioactive that supports this station and Real Resistance Radio. So, come help us reclaim our power as voters.
Become a member of the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. Go to citizenactionwy.org.
Have you outgrown your house? Are you sick of apartment living? Not ready to buy but know you need to move? Hi folks, this is Tom Hartman for CCL Management in Middleton. You should consider moving up to one of the finer rental homes CCL Management represents. Unique houses and condos, always clean, most are pet friendly. Visit cclmanagement.com today to find your new home. CCL Management, Dane County's premier leasing and property management company.
Call CCL Management at 833-0009. That's 833-0009 or visit cclmanagement.com today.
Hey, dude, quit bogarting. Tom and Crude are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and the party line. Talk or text 844-967-2789.
Thank you to our most recent fine guest, James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney. Dom, we got another fine guest waiting in the lobby. He'll join us in studio after 5. Louis Weisberg, publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. They published their last print issue Thursday, and they're a online website, but we're going to talk about media with Louis. But in the interim, Dom, Trump lawyers demand Mueller probe timeout if Rosenstein is ousted. Now, this seems quite an interesting theory that Rudy puts forth. I found it at the Daily Beast. Lachlan Markey. President Donald Trump's legal team is calling for a pause of the investigation into Russian election meddling should Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who oversees the investigation, resign or be fired. Here's a quote. If, in fact, Rod Rosenstein does end up resigning today, Trump attorney Jay Sekulow said on his radio program on Monday. Now, how can you be the Trump attorney and also be out blabbing on the radio?
Why not?
I guess.
Welcome to the world.
I think it clearly becomes necessary and appropriate that there be a step back taken here and a review that has to be thorough and complete, and basically a timeout on this inquiry. Now, that's an interesting theory in that if Trump fires Rosenstein, then he gets to use Rosenstein's firing as an excuse to review and take a timeout. You know, hell, let's take a 2, a 3, a 5-year, an 8-year timeout perhaps. Rudy Giuliani, I'm back to the Daily Beast. Rudy Giuliani, President Trump's lawyer and former New York City mayor, told the Daily Beast on Monday afternoon that he agrees with Sekulow's call.
Of course he does.
For a cessation of the investigation by special counsel Robert Mueller. Nothing to see here. In the event of Rosenstein's ouster, which was reported to be near as of Monday morning. Well, we'll have to wait for Thursday, Dom. The White House press shop did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Sekulow and Giuliani are the architects of Trump's legal strategy. Is that what it is? It's a legal strategy?
Hell yes, it is.
That is seeking to discredit and undercut the Mueller investigation, which they allege is rooted in political bias and potentially illegal investigative practices. Sekulow reiterated the position on his radio show Monday, suggesting that Rosenstein's actions have contributed to an investigative culture inherently hostile to the president. An independent investigator, he said, has to look at all these allegations, both surrounding this inquiry and that initiated this inquiry, he said. How do you not address that with all of this going on? Well, how do you get to fire a guy and then use that as justification to end the investigation into your client?
We need to investigate the investigators, Crudy.
Very deliberately, but not Brett Kavanaugh. You know, no investigation of Kavanaugh's.
It's like the bully on the playground that ends up, picking on one too many kids, and then he gets in a scrap, but at the end he's on the bottom. He's saying, "Stop! Time out!" Because they're getting beat. They're getting beat bad.
I hope that MuellerTime nears once again, perhaps a fresh round of indictments on Friday of this week.
You never know.
Friday has kind of become a traditional MuellerTime, not just here, but nationwide. I suspect they near the end. I speak only from what James Comey reportedly said over the weekend. And to think, Rosenstein is going to get fired for what? A Hillary Clinton letter used to justify the firing, the obstruction of justice to James Comey? Oh no, I forget. Thinks Trump's crazy like everybody else does. If that gets you fired, fire us all. Come back with us. And a fine guest, Louis Weisberg from the Wisconsin Gazette.
Sign on with the devil. I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern. You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
The Kavanaugh hearing, the president and Rosenstein. I'm Ann Cates. A second woman has come forward with sexual misconduct allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh tells Fox News he has no intention of withdrawing his name from consideration.
I'm not going to let false accusations drive us out of this process, and we're looking for a fair process where I can be heard and defend my integrity, my lifelong record of promoting dignity and equality for women, starting with the women who knew me when I was 14 years old. I'm not going anywhere.
The fate of Rod Rosenstein, the number 2 official at the Justice Department, remains up in the air. Correspondent Jess Seleny with a statement from White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders.
She said that the president had a conversation with the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein about recent news stories. She called it an extended conversation to discuss the recent news stories. She goes on to say this: because the president is at the United Nations General Assembly and has a full schedule with the leaders from around the world, they will meet on Thursday when the president returns to Washington.
After meeting in New York with the leader of South Korea, President Trump says there will be a second summit with North Korea.
Location to be determined, but we're both very much looking forward to having it. It will be between North Korea and the United States. It'll be similar to the format we had before, most likely a different location.
The owner of a Texas company that sells plans to make untraceable 3D printed guns is free on bond after being accused by authorities of paying $500 to have sex with an underage girl in Austin. Jail records show 30-year-old Cody Wilson was freed from the Harris County Jail in Houston after posting a $150,000 bond. On Wall Street, the Dow fell 181 points. I'm Ann Cates.
In-person absentee voting is now available in the state of Wisconsin. I want to encourage you. Go vote early. September 24th, voting begins in Milwaukee. Check with your city clerk to find out more. Vote now because you never know what might come up on Election Day. Secure your vote early. The more people who vote early, the easier it will be on Election Day for voters who can't. So go vote, Wisconsin. The polls are open now. This message brought to you by our friends at Wisconsin Voices.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
3304. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
Subscription radio company SiriusXM has announced it is buying music streaming service Pandora.
The $3.5 billion deal will merge SiriusXM's 36 million subscribers with Pandora's 70 million monthly active users, creating a tougher competitor to Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, and even Jay-Z's Tidal. SiriusXM made a serious investment into Pandora last year, buying up 19% of its stock for nearly $500 million, and this morning announced it's focused on a full purchase. Both boards of Pandora and and SiriusXM have approved. It still needs approval, though, by Pandora shareholders. Jim Roop, Los Angeles.
Weight Watchers is trimming its name to just 2 letters, WW. The company says it is renaming itself to focus more on overall wellness and not just dieting. WW has seen its business grow, helped by an investment by Oprah Winfrey. It had 4.5 million subscribers at the end of June, a 28% increase. I'm Ann Cates.
On marijuana, unfortunately, as a public health issue and a public safety issue, I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's 3 big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on them anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. The reconstruction of Interstate 94 from Milwaukee to the Illinois state line will include technology for driverless vehicles in order to help Foxconn move freight and people. The new Pfizer Forum will be the site for a free conference on health and healing from the epidemic of psychological trauma this Wednesday night. Legendary Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Bob Woodward is coming to Milwaukee to discuss his new book about the president called Fear, Trump in the White House. The Brewers beat the Pirates yesterday 13-6. The Brewers are 2.5 games behind the Cubs in the division race and only 2 games ahead of the Cardinals in the wild card. The Packers lost in Washington, D.C. yesterday 31-17. They'll play the Buffalo Bills this coming Sunday at Lambeau Field. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
The following program is a presentation of DC Communications, LLC. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the 5 o'clock happy hour, and we're happy indeed because we've got a fine guest who's joined us live in the Brady Street studios. He is Louis Weisberg, publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. Louis, welcome down to Brady Street. Thank you for coming down, sir.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I wish it was differing timing and differing circumstance. I've got the copy of last Thursday's Wisconsin Gazette. On the top, it says Progressive Alternative, and the main headline of this paper, time to say goodbye. This is the last published Wisconsin Gazette, Louis.
That's right, yes. We started, our first issue was in November 19th, 2009, and this was our last issue, so we had about a 9-year run.
A good run, but it has to be bittersweet here at the end.
It's mostly bitter. I mean, I gave this everything I had, and I've been doing it a long time, journalism. It's a tough market. I mean, it's a tough market. We were dependent on advertising for our income and for our revenue, and we just the ad agencies don't like print. The popular, the conventional wisdom is print is dead. But it really isn't dead. There's still people who, we printed 28 to 32,000 copies. We kept our pickup rate at 90%. So people were picking it up, and when people pick up a weekly or a bi-weekly, they take it home with them. Other people who live with them read it. They read it in a coffee shop and put it back on the rack. So, a lot of people are reading the paper. We're getting lots of emails, lots of Facebooks, lots of comments on the website. But for some reason, the advertising business has gone to all numbers now. And with digital and other means, you can actually tell the client, this is how many people saw your ad. It doesn't say anything about the quality of the site. Did they, in a newspaper, you're thumbing through it and the ads become part of the content. And people see the ads because they're picking the paper up because they actually want to read it. But when an ad comes to you on social media or online, it's interruptive. And in fact, many people block them. Like today with television, many people block commercials. They don't watch commercials on television. They're going to streaming. So they're, everything has its advantages and its disadvantages, but we had a loyal readership, and our advertisers were connecting with people in a place that mattered the most to the people who read it. They were connecting with them on their ideals, and they were connecting with them on their vision of what the state should be like, what the country should be like, and they were supporting environmentalism by advertising the paper. They were supporting, Black Lives Matter, immigrant rights, a lot of things, and but we just couldn't keep it up. We had a few good, 6-month periods, but over the long haul, it just wasn't working.
Louis, why the failure to succeed? If you're doing good journalism and you've got a dynamic work and people are reading it, and seemingly that should be the metric, why was this paper not embraced? And I get the ads, the advertising agencies, and you and I could talk off air all day about that.
Oh, yeah.
But why don't you think this community financially embraced what it is you were trying to accomplish?
Well, for one thing, it's not a very sophisticated market in terms of marketing. And a lot of small advertisers feel like that advertising is a donation. They don't really understand that it's to get them business. But, a real ad campaign or a marketing campaign, you have a brand and you advertise across multiple platforms, and a target audience, a niche market, is a good part of that mix. But, they say that when you're starting a business, you should set aside 20% of your budget for advertising, but no one does it. So, it's the last thing they pay for. And,
don't I know it, brother?
And the first thing they cut.
Yeah, first thing they cut. And, in a newspaper now like ours, there's not a lot of competition. There's not a lot of ads. So if you're a car dealership, you got it. You got those 28,000, or they say that 2.5 people read each issue, whatever. But you've got those eyes, and they're only going to see your ad while they're reading that. You go online, and you're going to see hundreds of car dealerships. So it's better than ever, and people don't realize it. I can't tell you why, why it didn't work. It should have. And, it was a dream come true in terms of we won 31 awards from the Milwaukee Press Club in 8 years. We were honored twice by the Association of Alternative News Media. We got lots of credit and lots of praise, and the readers liked us, but we pulled out of Madison before that was our first kind of scale back. And we went from bright white paper, which is a heavier paper, to this news stock. So we cut costs quite a bit. But, Madison's a whole story. Madison, we were like, our boxes were trashed and stolen.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's
liberals in Madison, Crudy.
Those Isthmus guys, they play hardball, I guess.
No, the Isthmus was actually great. They were delivering us. We had a contract with them.
Teasing. I tease, sir. Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates on Real Resistance Radio. We've got Louis Weisberg. He is the publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. Now defunct is a print piece, but your website is still operating at wisconsingazette.com. How long will you operate as an online organization?
We pretty much decided today we're not going to keep it up because, it's a lot of work. It's not expensive, but it's a lot of work. And, it would pay for itself, and that's it. And there's so many You know, there are just so many news sources on the web. In fact, there not a lot where you can, you know, be confident that what you're getting is true. But
ain't that the truth?
There are a lot of them, and I don't know. I don't think the world needs another one.
How about LGBTQ advocacy? The Gazette, if I understand correctly, was originally created in part to become a platform. How did the community support in that regard?
Well, you know, we did such a good job of establishing ourselves as an LGBT paper that when we started, when the Onion went out of business, we bought their distribution and their racks and their circulation, and we went from 10,000 to up to 30,000. And people never accepted us as not a gay paper. In fact, we would tell people, I mean, you know, we won an award from the Wisconsin League of Conservation Voters and Planned Parenthood. You know, I mean, we were covering a lot of things, but we weren't just an LGBT paper. But somehow the perception was, oh, they're just a gay paper, which really kind of pissed me off because, you know, I'm a gay man.
What about the politicians? What about the politics? Now, anyone that's heard me whine a little bit, bemoan the fact that I didn't feel like the Democrats supported this little operation in our first 18 months of existence. You know, it's part of what I planned. It's part of what I projected when I talked to the bank and borrowed a lot of money to get this little operation up and running. You know, I pointed out election cycle. They're bound to use us. They got to use us. Did they use the Wisconsin Gazette?
No, I'm with you, man. I mean, we Leonard, who owns the paper, he could give you a real diatribe about that. We expected a lot more support, you know, and also we went to boards of organizations that we covered the environment more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we went to board members. Leonard was on the board. He's vice president of the board of the Wisconsin League of Conservation Voters, and you know, we went to board members who had businesses that could have advertised, and they didn't, and we were shocked. You know, I mean, Leonard's pretty angry about it, really. I imagine you are too.
I'm trying to survive out here still, so I bite my tongue occasionally, and other times I vent on the radio.
I don't have to anymore.
Right, speak your truth.
I'm free.
The politics. I hear this sometimes, and I find myself as salesman on behalf of my organization. At times, we've got others that help. But I hear the excuse, well, I don't want to get out there. I don't want to associate my brand, my company, with politics. And I've always thought to myself, well, I don't care where you advertise. It's about return on investment. If the very engaged audience that listens here, if they hear your ad and they show up and they spend money in your shop, why is that any different than getting on right-wing talk radio where the Brewers might also play? I mean, so many of them advertise on righty-whitey talk radio. Do Republicans not have the same issues, or do Democrats just talk out of both sides of their mouths?
Well, I think I can understand maybe that some businesses, I can appreciate that they would want to protect their, you know, stay neutral. And if people told us that, you know, I respected it, but they didn't tell us that. They wouldn't explain. I mean, I would ask people, you know, I didn't sell ads, but as publisher, I would call people who didn't renew, and I would ask them to, you know, I'd say just as one business person to another, I'd like to know why, so that I can, you know, make my business better. And no one would talk. In fact, one woman told me not to tell her how to do her job, and she slammed the phone down on me just because I asked.
Louis, over the years since you've been doing this, how has the role of the ad agencies changed and evolved, and how did it impact your business?
Well, I really don't have anything nice to say about Milwaukee ad agencies, frankly. They were not support. You know, they tell it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They tell their clients that print is dead. And so that becomes what everyone believes. They make it dead by telling people it's dead. People, you know, it's not the biggest thing in the market anymore. It doesn't dominate, but people still read it. I mean, tens of thousands of people in this area still read it. People like to read newspapers. Yeah. I mean, you know, when cable came along, the movies were supposed to go out of business, but they worked them both in. You know, now the streaming and cable's worried about. You know, these things work together, but for some reason, newspapers just got shunted aside. Like, oh, they're no good anymore.
Were there different margins for print versus internet or radio or television, those kinds of things?
The print is really expensive. very expensive. And especially if one thing we did is I insisted on paying writers. And other publications here, and online publications and print publications, don't do that. But as someone who started out as a freelancer when I was in my 20s, a long time ago, I just couldn't be part of that.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. We got Louis Weisberg, the publisher, editor-in-chief. And I hate to call it this, the now defunct Wisconsin Gazette. I've got it right in my hand. I've got the last printed edition, apparently not going to continue as an online edition either. I want to talk about the journalism you folks did here, though, and the editorials. In fact, I'd rather be talking about the anti-Brad Schimel editorial you wrote in the final issue. We'll get to that as well. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates right here on WRRD 1510 AM. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Grass is growing. It's time to move on. It's time to get going.
Do you love public education? Do you want to support your schools? Then you should support the people who make them work. You should support teachers and their unions. Teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions, and when the school bell rings, it is crucial that teachers do not check their rights at the door. The ability to organize and advocate around issues that improve the quality of a teacher's workplace will increase opportunities for students and make schools safer for everyone. Stand with teachers, stand with WEAC Region 7.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve. Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
Tom Perez, chair of the Democratic National Committee. Scott Walker went on something of a Twitter storm, very Trumpian. What do you think this foretells for Scott Walker's future as the governor of the state of Wisconsin?
Wisconsinites have woken up. He talked about we need an optimistic message. How can you make people feel optimistic when you take away their health care? How can you make people optimistic when you take away the right to bargain? How can you make people feel optimistic when you're gerrymandering the heck out of districts?
Radio for the 99%. The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. If you missed any of this fine program, please go online. You can listen to and download podcasts and interviews for free at realresistanceradio.com.
What kind of a business model is that? Free podcast. Right. I wonder why we're broke. We got a fine guest live in studio. He is Louis Weisberg, publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. A sad week for them. Time to say goodbye, the headline tells us, on the last print edition published last Thursday. Louis, I got to ask you about the journalism, and I suspect it's going to be missed. And, you know, I got to think in some way, shape, or form, because I've thought, what would happen if it all came crumbling down on me? What will happen then? And I'll think, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Yeah. But that's a very little solace, is it?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of people saying, "Oh my God, no, don't."
If I'd have only known.
Yeah, bullshit.
I would have.
You say that?
No.
Sorry.
We'll clean her up. Louis, so here's a question. What about the journalism? People are going to miss the journalism, I suspect. The lack of good journalism, especially on the local level, especially here in the state of Wisconsin. On the right, there are outfits like Right Wisconsin. And they're funded by the Bradley Foundation and different right-wing think tanks. So they're not successful in the same regard. They don't have a successful business model unless you consider them as a propaganda piece for the right, and they're bought and paid for effectively by right-wing institutional think tanks. But no such thing on the left, as far as I can tell. Well, the journalism is really just about covering the facts.
Well, we do have the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism, and they do wonderful work. And they go after corruption, and they go after polluters, and they go after a lot. In fact, we ran a lot of their pieces on our website and sometimes in the paper.
But they're more of a Sunlight Foundation. They're not a fund a lefty ideology sort of organization.
No George Soros money come flowing in?
Oh, I knew we forgot to call somebody.
Still waiting on that check.
No, what can I say? It's always been the problem for liberals. The right is always better funded because they sell out. I mean, not that we don't need to, but I didn't.
No, and so far I haven't sold out yet, although if you're offering. But I look at the campaign coffers of the Democrats, those, the top candidates, Senate level, congressional level, certainly on the presidential level. I mean, these campaigns have money. They have money nearly equitably to Republicans, depending on the race, sometimes more. They all cry poverty, but sometimes they get millions of dollars. And I'm not clear why they don't see a partnership to be had with an outfit like the Wisconsin Gazette, why they don't think it's their responsibility to come alongside you. You lift them up, you publish facts, and they support you when it's time to get reelected.
Right. Well, they gave us a lot of good tips for stories.
I guess that's something.
And we did get campaign ads, but campaigns don't happen that often. The Republicans in Wisconsin have so much more money than the Democrats. It's unbelievable. I mean, Scott Walker's raised $100 million. Now, this was like 6 months ago. I don't know what it is now. During his political career, $100 million. No Democrat in Wisconsin has raised $100 million. So, we are gerrymandered out of existence. We're spent out of existence. And why they don't support us, I guess they feel like we're already on board, so they got to spend it somewhere else.
Now, I always felt like NPR, public radio, worked against the commercial radio stations like this little radio station. They're used to getting it effectively for free. And I don't think that they look at this as a necessary platform, a necessity to them. The right certainly gets it. There's 81 right-wing talk radio stations doing what we do just in the state of Wisconsin. And there's one of us.
I had no idea.
235 hours of conservative talk radio pumped out on those 81 stations per day.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
You think they'd show up and support the one lefty station, but not to bemoan the fact they don't. We've moved beyond that. I mean, if I was dependent upon political dollars to keep me afloat, that boat sailed.
Yeah.
We had to move on without the politicians, Lewis. We look at pizza parlors. We look at our friends in labor. We look wherever someone's looking for return on investment to find our advertisers, and we knock on a lot of doors. But I'm done asking politicians to support this little endeavor. That's futile.
Yes. But the pizza parlors will.
Hopefully they will, especially those with the good thick crust. Lewis, do you think that the lack of the Wisconsin Gazette, do you think there will be a void, or do you think someone will come in to try and fill the void with their own ideology, their own take on newsprint?
No, I think that the thing that I hate most about it is that by going out of business, we reinforce this the cycle of common wisdom that print is dead, and that kept us going for another year just because we didn't want to do that. But no, I think that I don't think print is really expensive.
Well, the entry point into radio is not so cheap either. It's funny because I know the righties are cheering against me. It just hurts a little worse when the lefties are also kind of rooting against you.
No, I hear you. We felt that many times.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. You are listening to Real Resistance Radio. We got Louis Weisberg, publisher, editor-in-chief, Wisconsin Gazette. We're talking media and Trump's America. Come back with us. More with Louis.
for the only thing better than Dove. Free.
Join the resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
5/9, your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Well, back in my day, we didn't build walls, we tore them down. That's why I listen to Real Resistance Radio. What's a firewall?
Because 1 in 5 black men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer within their lifetime, the Prostate Health Education Network joins with Frontera and the Medical College of Wisconsin to present the Prostate Health Education Symposium. This free event will be held on Saturday, September 29th from 8 a.m. until noon at Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church, 3456 North 38th Street in Milwaukee. A complimentary breakfast will be served. Up-to-date information and materials will be provided to men at risk, diagnosed, and those living as survivors of prostate cancer. This symposium also educates spouses, caregivers, and loved ones on how to best support these men. Attend to learn from experts, ask questions, and get the knowledge you need. For more information and to register, please call 414-955-8819. That's 414-955-8819 or visit prostatehealthed.org.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
Hey, this is Stu Daniels, host of Stu Man PM, politics and music, heard every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. here on Real Resistance Radio. Stu Man PM is your Sunday afternoon update on 2 of my favorite topics, politics and music. Join me this Sunday, Bruce Springsteen's birthday, when my guest will be former candidate for governor Andy Gronick. We'll be talking politics, we'll be talking music. Stu Man PM, Sundays 4 to 6 p.m. here on Real Resistance Radio.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Wisconsin's 1st congressional district was the center of the state's political universe yesterday. Several candidates, both Democrat and Republican, campaigned in the district on Sunday. According to the Journal-Sentinel, a Republican rally drew about 3 dozen activists and featured Scott Walker, Brad Schimmel, Leah Vukmer, Robin Voss, and Brian Steil. In the afternoon, dozens of Democrats filled a campaign office to listen to Tammy Baldwin, Tony Evers, Mandela Barnes, Josh Call, and Randy Bryce, and Sarah Goldlewski. At an event in Racine, Senator Baldwin said, quote, "Healthcare and people's access to insurance and medications they can afford is on the ballot." Monday, Milwaukee, increasing clouds, highs in the upper 60s. Madison, mostly sunny, highs in the low 70s. Tonight, mostly cloudy, lows in the low 60s. For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show in the midst of the happy hour talking media with Louis Weisberg, publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. They are no longer the headline. Time to say goodbye. Their last print edition, I don't mean to rub it in, Louis, last print edition last Thursday, talking about the importance of local journalism. I think it's very important. I think there's a big reason why Democrats keep losing. And in some way, shape, or form, it's the loss of local media coverage. And the McIver Institutes and the Right Wisconsins and these foundationally funded right-wing organizations, well, they offer news to the small local papers. And it looks newsy and it reads newsy, only it's ideology-driven. It's agenda-driven. It's advocacy-driven news. But when you're a small-town paper and you've got a two-person newsroom, you grab anything that readable and presentable to the audience. What was your guys' standard for outside submissions? How did you decide editorially what was going to get published in the paper?
Well, we were members of the AP Co-op, the Newsfinder, which is for weeklies. But I relied heavily on press releases from, One Wisconsin Now, Democracy Alliance, places like that. And those would often, give me a tip for a story, or at least give me something that I could put on the website or put in briefs, so that we have a section in there called people can read and get it tells them to go out and get involved. There's going to be this thing this Saturday, and they can go help clean up the park or something like that. But we tried to, in terms of submissions, that was, I had a hard time finding good writers. The first few years, that was one of the biggest struggles, was finding people who, could write good copy, because people don't study it anymore because there's not much of a future in it. And now I have, or last week, I had the best staff I've ever had in every way, seriously. I knew that would happen. But but we had pretty high standards. We didn't just print anything that people sent.
To your experience, Lewis, are there any politicians that actually, when they write an op-ed, and one hopes they write it themselves, not written by staffers. I suspect many times it's the staffers that wrote the op-ed. But did you find anyone particularly compelling? Did anyone's submissions often make it into the paper if they sent you out a press release that you felt like was legitimately from the elected?
Yes. Kathleen Vinehouse is a very good writer, and she's very, very smart.
Yeah, we love Kathleen.
Yeah, and Chris Taylor is very smart, very good writer. Jonathan Brostoff would send us stuff. There are quite a few, actually. And then some of the
anyone's feelings you want to hurt today, Lewis?
No.
Anyone who's less talented at writing?
No, they don't. They're professional enough not to send it out without having somebody read it first.
I do have my own editor. I make Dominic read my press releases. I came through the written side. I came through the newspaper side. But you get out of practice. Yeah. Writing is a craft. It's a vocation, and it takes a lot of work. It's very hard. And the hardest part, and people don't seem to realize this, it's not. It's the efficiency of words.
Yes.
You gotta get it all out there. Who, what, when, where, why, and you've got 400 words.
Yeah.
And tell the entirety of the story, please.
People who can't write well, they sit down and they're going to write, and they forget what they're writing about, and they just throw in all these. I'm pretty bad. I throw in everything. Every time I write a story, people I worked with would joke, "It's not the encyclopedia," but you have to stay focused. You have to have a good lead and a nut graph, and you have to know where you're going, and you have to know what you need to support your thesis. And most people can't do that. So,
Lewis, Scott Walker, as a politician, as an interview subject, A, have you ever interviewed the gubernator?
Never.
And B, it's one of those where, talking about word salads, I have never really seen a cogent quote from Scott Walker. It's basically either a bumper sticker or it's a word salad, but the man never says anything. How does he get elected, Lewis?
Well, I think that it's a cult of personality. I honestly think that when I talk to people, and I do a lot, like when I'm on an airplane, I'll sit next to somebody who looks like kind of a redneck, and I'll start talking to them, and just because I want to know what they think.
Right.
I listen to Fox News. I read Right Wisconsin. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think that Scott Walker, his biggest appeal is the typical Scott Walker voter says, because I don't want to give my money to those people who sit on their asses and don't do anything. It's racism.
The safety net should be a trampoline and not a hammer.
Oh, that's a good one. I haven't heard that
Walker uses it constantly.
Yes,
I've never heard it.
Loves that one.
Why do you think we celebrate the 4th of July and not tax day? Another one of his favorite panders. In the whole scheme of things, do you feel like you advanced the dialogue? Do you feel like the Gazette advanced the political discourse in the state of Wisconsin?
You know, I can't be that grandiose. I did hear from people who said thank you, or one guy wrote me and said that he read a book that I wrote about that was, gosh, I can't remember the name of it, Dark Money, how the right wing took over America, the Republican Party. And he said that it completely illuminated him and it changed his mind. I do think that I would hear from people who would say you made a really compelling argument. But in terms of, people, if you've ever noticed, they think what their neighbors think. That's why they're Republican neighborhoods. I mean, people are immersed in their own little bubble. They watch what their neighbors watch and their friends and the friends at work watch. And they talk to each other, and they want to be part of the group. So there's not a lot of independent thinking. Over the weekend, Leonard and I were knocking doors in Wauwatosa, most of them were very receptive because we were doing it for the Democratic Party. But a couple of them said, nope, not interested, gave us a smile, no offense, just not interested. So, they're part of a group. And the Scott Walker people, it's almost like the Trump people. It's almost like a cult. I mean, they don't want you. It's like poor guys trying to do something good, and people just won't give them a break. I hear that a lot. And the Trump people, too. It's, why do you keep picking on him? Why is everybody all over him? No other president's gone through this. I guess they forgot about Obama.
Right. As abhorrent as the election of Donald Trump seemed, I mean, you should have seen the show we did. We did it straight to stream. No FCC regulations the day after the election, and we let them have it. But I envisioned the reaction to Donald Trump would be so visceral that people would want to get out there and support the left, and they'd want to get out there and support the media. The Trump presidency, has it been bewildering, the left's reaction? And they seem very confused and very befuddled about what to do next.
Yeah, it is shocking, but his poll numbers are going down. I mean, it's being whittled away. People are starting to. In fact, one of the people whose door we knocked on over the weekend said as we were walking away, said, "Except for Trump, I'm not for Trump."
Folks, is that a Republican saying I'm not for Trump?
Yeah.
Trying to draw the distinction.
Yeah. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Louis Weisberg, publisher and editor-in-chief, Wisconsin Gazette, joins us in studio on Brady Street. Louis, I do some of the same things. I watch, Fox News, and I try to get, Drudge is one of my go-tos. Yeah. I want to see, I want to learn it, and same on the left. I mean, I've always done that. When O'Reilly was on, I go to the first 10 minutes of O'Reilly, then go over to MSNBC.
Oh, Dom loved him some Papa Bear.
So, but I'm down. What do you think, though? I mean, when over the last 9 years, certainly gay marriage has become legal, and starting out as the gay newspaper, what was your reaction there? Do you think people, because it became legal, it became more acceptable, or do you think people are still pushing back on gay marriage? What's your opinion there?
People have become much more accepting.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who will always push back on. The number one thing that people on the right vote on is abortion. I mean, a gay candidate can get elected above a woman in the United States, and there's statistics that support that. I can't remember, maybe the Williams Institute. But once marriage was legalized, that's when we started thinking, we need to broaden our mission.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bad stuff going on.
And the atheists, they have about a 0% chance. They're completely unelectable in this society. Although most young people, if you ask them, what religion do you profess to, it would be none of the above. But if you don't call yourself a Christian, apparently you're nearly unelectable in society. Any opinions on that, sir?
Well, I was surprised that Bernie Sanders did as well as he did because he's Jewish. And I actually had friends who aren't Jewish who said, because I supported Hillary, who said, I can't believe you're not supporting Sanders. He's Jewish.
Aren't you all in the same club?
Yeah, right. I had a guy who used to write to me from prison for like several years, long, long letters, and he would ask me to tell the Jews to get off his back, to intervene on his behalf with the Jews, because it was, he's a nut. But these letters were really scary and they were long.
And the Rothschilds, did you intervene with the Illuminati as well?
No, the only Rothschild I talked to was Matt Rothschild.
Batman, we love Matt.
Yeah, we do love Matt. I said something to you off the air, and I have made a big effort to try and provide diversity, a platform. And maybe I don't make the announcements, two white guys here doing this show together. I know there's enough white guys on the radio, but we do it better than most. But we also provide a platform for a variety of other voices, African Americans and females and LGBTQ. How important do you think it is to provide an outlet for diverse voices? It seems like, if you're white and you're a male, you've got a radio station.
Yeah.
But if you're not, where else are you going to go?
Yeah. I tried when we first started. I had a young Latino writer. I wanted a millennial, and from that point of view, I've tried, and I have had different writers. But I tried to. You can't really speak with authenticity unless you walk the walk. So I sometimes felt like. Lisa Neff, who I've worked with for 30 years, she's our managing editor, and she lives in Florida now. But sometimes I find myself writing a story about transvaginal, ultrasounds, and I think I shouldn't be writing this. I don't have a vagina. So can I say that on the radio?
Yeah, we can say vagina on the radio.
Vagina. It's hard. This city doesn't provide a lot of opportunities to people of color. Let's face it. So,
what do you think? African Americans did not turn out, at least not in significant enough numbers, to elect Hillary Clinton in 2016.
There are people who disagree.
What do you attribute that to?
I said that to someone. I said that to an African American woman who's very head of an organization and very bright, and she said it isn't true. It really isn't true. And I talked to Neil Albrecht at the Election Commission. A lot of African Americans didn't turn out to vote because of the laws, because it was so complicated, and because they were afraid. A lot of them didn't turn out to vote because they changed the precincts. There were a lot of reasons, but
the suppression worked.
Yeah, Well, Brad Schimmel said, in public, he said, how about that? The voter ID law worked for us like we thought. He said it. He's up for re-election, Attorney General. He said that publicly, folks. So you might want to think about that before you vote for him.
I tell you what, we got time for one last segment here with Louis Weisberg. Before we call it a show, let's turn to the politics.
Yeah.
And perhaps your last editorial, at least in the short run, you wrote one about Brad Schimmel, the current Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin.
He's the worst.
We find him to be a tremendous hack, sir. We don't like him much. We think he's very incompetent at his job, but we'll get your opinion on the other side, folks.
Can't wait.
We are the Devil's Advocates. That's Louis Weisberg, publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, 1510 AM, Milwaukee, Waukesha, 1580 Columbus, Madison.
I don't have a lot of expertise. I don't even know my own website address.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
The Resistance is live 7 days a week here on Real Resistance Radio. Tune in Sundays for Meet the Press with Chuck Todd from 11 a.m. to noon. Then it's the Best of the Forum with Sherwin Hughes from 12 to 3 p.m. And Citizen Action's Battleground Wisconsin rages from 3 to 4 p.m. Get your groove on with Stu Man PM, Politics and Music 4 to 6 p.m. with Stu Daniels. Mandatory listening, always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
You're listening to the radio show your mother warned you about. Tom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. Again, if you missed any of this fine program, go to the website, realresistanceradio.com. You can listen to the interviews and podcasts.
Dominic, we've got Louis Weisberg, the publisher, editor-in-chief, Wisconsin Gazette. They went to print with their last edition last Thursday. Time to Say Goodbye is the sad headline here, but I'd like to turn to the inner pages of this fine edition, and let's talk about this op-ed. You're not a fan of Brad Schimmel either, are you, Louis?
No, I'm outraged by Brad Schimmel. I'm outraged by a lot of people, but he's up there at the top.
Now, Josh Call, currently seems like a very smart young guy.
Very.
Seems very reserved and quiet. Maybe could be a little better politician, hasn't quite learned how to, do it, more of a litigator at this point in his career. But he certainly seems competent, and that would be miles and miles better than the current Attorney General. Your paper has endorsed Josh Call. That had to be an easy choice.
It was a no-brainer. Josh Call, by the way, is a great candidate under any circumstances. He was a federal prosecutor in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. He broke up gangs. He broke up drug-running gangs. He actually argued around the country to get rid of voter ID laws and also gerrymandering. He's been on the opposite side of everything that Schimmel's been on. And his mother, by the way, was an attorney general.
Now, other endorsed candidates by the Wisconsin Gazette, Tammy Baldwin, that also seems pretty obvious.
Yes.
Leah Buchmer, pretty unpalatable. Have you ever seen a worse candidate?
No.
Aside of Brad Schimmel.
They call in the legislature, they call her Nurse Ratched because she used to be a nurse and a psychiatric nurse. She is a bitter pill.
See, I thought that was my original. I know that she has embraced that moniker. I often label her as such. Tony Evers, by default, he's not Scott Walker. Well, it was a big field. I don't know if you would have chosen Tony Evers, but big field of candidates, and Tony came through. Is he the right guy? Can you envision him as the next governor of the state of Wisconsin, Louis?
I can envision him as the next governor. I think that the Democrats have erred repeatedly over the last 3 cycles in putting up a nominee who's an old white man. And the thing now is to get young people out to vote. People under 35 are the largest voting bloc in the nation, and to get women out to vote. And we had Malin Mitchell is a dynamic man. He had a lot to learn, but he was smart. He could learn it. And Kelda Royce, we endorsed her originally. She's on the ball.
Yeah.
She knows her stuff. I mean, she was in the legislature. She started businesses. She's done a lot of stuff, and she's a mom.
Well, and it was unfortunate because so many of these Democrats, they're so damn nice, Louis.
They're
nice in that they never wanted to contrast themselves. They never wanted to say, well, that's his idea, but I think he's wrong, and here's how I do it differently.
I'm glad they didn't, though.
But ultimately, did they allow less than the strongest candidate to come through the primary process because other than name recognition, Tony Evers, a lot of his campaign was, I'm the front runner, see you at the finish line.
Yeah, it was. He's a very nice man, and he's a very smart man, and he's really committed. He really is. I would like it if I wish he was a little more exciting, but I mean, Scott Walker isn't exciting really either.
Not at all.
The people.
No, I mean he's not. And Walker going out there, we saw him in Iowa, and
even Tonette doesn't
when he was
care for
running
Scott
for
Walker.
president. I mean Walker, he was just so desperate. I'm not intimidated by you. So I mean, he's terrible. Yeah. He's terrible.
What about Mandela Barnes, a dynamic young guy from Milwaukee, served in the state legislature, and he certainly offers a nice compliment to Tony Evers. Is he going to be, and I hate to put it all on Mandela, is he perhaps the youthful salvation of the ticket?
I hope so. He's a really bright guy. He's a really sharp guy. And again, he's a very committed young man. And I've always liked him. In fact, we endorsed him when he ran for state senate against Lena Taylor. I've always thought a lot of him. Can he bring in people to vote who might not otherwise vote? I don't know.
How about Ernell Lucas? Obviously, when he won the primary, effectively he became the sheriff-elect of Milwaukee County. We've had the opportunity. He was just in studio this weekend with Earl Ingram. Really impressed. Oh, yeah. He's an impressive guy. And certainly this city...
Oh, my God. I mean...
I hate to bring up the last guy, but I think they've done better.
Yeah, he's a real mensch. Ernell is the real thing.
Do you miss not having Sheriff Clark to kick around anymore?
Well, Sheriff Clark was clickbait. I mean, hashtag Sheriff Clark hashtag Dave Clark would get us 5,000 hits easy.
Pitchforks and torches time in America. Now, congressionally, you guys have gone, seemingly with the strong Dem field. Randy Bryce in the 1st Congressional District. New York Times polling says Randy is modestly trailing Brian Stile. Stile apparently is, a corporate lawyer / manufacturer / former chauffeur of Paul Ryan. Seems like a Paul Ryan clone. Yeah. Seems like another one of the same. So if Janesville in the 1st Congressional District wants more Paul Ryan, that's what Brian Stile offers. Is Randy Bryce the guy to beat him?
They're beating up on him real hard. I don't know how many commercials you've seen, but they're just really trashing him. I mean, heavy duty all day long on TV.
During the primary, Brian Stile was the biggest single candidate investment in advertising time with this station during the primary. Brian Stile.
Really?
Republican.
Oh, my God. You guys have to vote for him now.
It's not our district, unfortunately, Louis.
You're gonna say that.
Dan Cole, he obviously draws a strong contrast with Glenn Grothman.
Grothy.
Now, Grothman's been on the show before. Dan Cole, I think, is coming down this week or next. What's your impression? Anybody but Grothman, right?
Yeah, Grothman's, he's an idiot. They don't even let him speak. He can't even, by the way, he also said that the voter ID, that it worked in keeping minorities from voting. He lived in his mother's basement or something until he was like...
Ma, the meatloaf! Yes, we tease him often. Tom Pelzowitz, the good soldier taking on Jim Sensenbrenner. We love us some Tom Pelzowitz.
Yeah.
Seems like such a smart guy, so business savvy and a good guy overall. I'm a little optimistic that he might have a fighting chance, but seemingly Sensenbrenner's got that one held down for the last half a century or so.
Yeah. You'd think people would be sick of him.
I'm sick of him, but again, not my district.
Louis Weisberg, we hope you come back. Publisher, editor-in-chief of the Wisconsin Gazette. Thanks for coming in and talking.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I want to thank all our fine guests today. They included Christine Neumann-Ortiz, Executive Director, Voces de la Frontera, Dana Schultz, Executive Director, Wisconsin Voices. Don't forget, folks, early voting starts in Milwaukee today. Go vote. Go bank it. Fine. Former U.S. Attorney James Santelle, always a great guest. And Louis, thank you once again. Folks, we're the Devil's Advocates. Do it all again for you tomorrow. Republican coming in studio, Joe Sanfilippo. We'll give him hell. Thanks for listening. Have a great night. Do it on the radio again for you tomorrow.
If you're like a lot of companies, you know you need IT, but you aren't sure where to start. That's where Five9s comes in. Hi, I'm Todd Stryker.